Okay.
People are wondering what motorboat means. You seem so confused. And
producer
I just want to
Steven.
be clear that what it means is that I take my wife out on the water. We
Okay.
have
Yes,
have
of
like
course.
a
Yes,
a
of
boat
course.
with
Yes,
a
of
prop
course.
engine,
What
and
is
you're just
that?
right. It's a prop. This is like like when you're out there in the little fishing boats. You got
Terrifying. Don't do that.
some boats are sailboats.
Right.
Some boats are rowboats.
Right.
Motorboats have like there's a motor attached
But I'll
to it.
ask you again, is it built for speed or built for comfort?
Fantasy Football Pregame with Matthew Berry, served by Applebee's.
All right, welcome to Fantasy Football Pregame. We're live and on the water. I'm Jay Croucher. Here's Matthew Berry. Here's Lawrence Jackson. Michael Smith out sick today. Get better, Michael. We have got a lot to cover. Tweet us using the hashtag FFPregame. We answer more questions than anyone, Matthew. That is a scientific fact. Got a lot to get to today. We're going to have a live reaction to the committee's playoff selection, the 4 teams going. We have a very unbiased participant here. We have a member of the committee in Lawrence Jackson.
I'm on the committee. See it right there in red letters. I'm part of the committee. So whoever y'all want in there, let me know. I'll talk to my people.
Tweet out Lord Don't Lose. I like the fact that by the way, I don't know what the criteria is to be on the committee. It might just be if you buy the T-shirt. It might actually be it.
Yeah, you gotta watch like 3 college games per year, and then once it comes time to
seems
championship,
like
once it get down to championship weekend, like, hey, all right, you good. So you want Bama in there? We'll get him in there for Matthew Berry. Let's go.
I'm just glad, Matthew, that you were able to make it to the show after you waged war on Florida State University last night. I've got bad news actually in Tallahassee where the show is geo-blocked.
Yeah.
So we've lost our audience there. So
That I don't doubt at all. I had a spirited conversation with many fine FSU fans and other people yesterday on Twitter. I'll just say this in general, and this is not specific to Florida State. I have a number of friends that went to Florida State. I have nothing against Florida State. I just don't think you guys are one of the 4 best teams in college football right now. Period. And from what I understand, that's what the college football playoff is supposed to be, putting the 4 best teams in the playoff. And if what you're supposed to say is like, no, it's just about who doesn't lose, then, let's go
Put
back
in Liberty. Liberty's undefeated right now.
Liberty's undefeated.
13-0.
Let's go back in time and give UCF the national championship. They never lost.
Too.
For 2 years, they never lost. I mean, and the other thing they'd be like if you ever want to feel smart about yourself, just go through my mentions. Because I think that the overall, and there's some very smart, spirited discussion on college football, but generally speaking, some of the dumbest stuff I've ever read might have been last night.
Yep.
Brutal. There'd be people that would say Alabama's win against Auburn was totally lucky, and that's a bad win and should be counted against them. Okay, but then in the same breath, and they're like, and hey, we just beat Louisville, that we went undefeated. I'm like, okay, that was a bad
Louisville, who lost to Kentucky last week, and they were barely 500.
Louisville looked awful. Louisville looked awful, and by the way, got screwed on a call. That was a touchdown. I'm sorry, he was down with possession, and he's touched, plays over. Yeah. And Florida State literally was on every single possession. The Rennes was like, I guess they're really letting them play. Whatever. The whole thing is.
I just like that you've waged war on FSU, which is one of the most feel-good stories that they're doing this in second, third, string quarter. It's like waging war on Shane Steichen's Colts. But that is kind of the point that maybe you don't want Shane Steichen's Colts in the Super Bowl.
They have a great defense. And they have a great defense, and they're absolutely undefeated and whatever. We'll find out in 45 minutes, and at least 2 fan bases will be absolutely furious as well. By the way, it was plus 700 that we would open the show with motorboating.
Yes.
I thought for sure, they're probably going to find me. They're probably going to suspend me. I'm going to get called into HR. I didn't think they would actually not only did that never happen, no one said anything, but now we doubled down on it. And
it's a good job. Good by NBC.
Yes.
Yeah, good liberal approach to television.
I will say this: people literally, it's been almost 2 years since I left ESPN, and to this day, people keep coming to me and they're like, "Wow, you seem so much happier at NBC. You're always smiling."
Wow.
And I'm like, well,
Strays.
I mean. Anyway,
ESPN's been left out of the playoff. All right, let's get to pro football.
I would have had many discussions, and I would have had to sign some HR thing, if I'd made the motorboat joke on ESPN. I'm dead serious.
That's the beauty.
I'm dead serious. They would have called me into an office. They would have talked about Don't get me
That's
started.
good. It's good content. All right, let's get to Week 13 storylines. Lawrence, kick us off. What are you looking for?
Speaking of motorboat, who just mentioned motorboat? My boy, our boy, little motorboat Singletary, Devin Singletary. The question I have for today, my storyline is, can he maintain his dominance in this Houston Texans backfield, or do we expect Dameon Pierce, who last week was coming off the injury, do we expect him to get a little more involved? Because last week, Bobby Slowick said he would be involved, but he really wasn't as much. It was Singletary. So does that continue today, or does Pierce's workload ramp up now that he's further removed from that injury?
Yep, against the Broncos' run defense as well, that doesn't give up 70 anymore to Miami, but still hasn't been that good recently. Matthew, what do you got?
My storyline is, we're going to get to a bunch of the big boarding questions as well, but one storyline I have, T. Higgins is back for the Bengals Monday night. It's going to be Jake Browning's second start. The Bengals are 10-point underdogs in this one. I am shocked by that. And so getting T. Higgins back, second start, I understand Jacksonville should be favored there at home. I think they're probably the better team. I know that the Bengals defense has not been good and they're banged up, but 10 points strikes me as a lot. So anyway, my storyline is, can the Bengals offense get close to what we thought it would be when it was rolling with Joe Burrow, now that they're fully healthy, with T. Higgins back, with Joe Mixon, with Jamar Chase, and Jake Browning another week in as the starting quarterback of this offense?
Yep. All right, we've got a viewer question from Michael Thomas, recuperating on IR. Michael is still live for the playoffs, but needs a little help and some luck. It's a 0.5 PPR. Wide receiver spot, Christian Watson, T. Higgins, or Curtis Samuel. Matthew.
I think I'm going T. Higgins. I get it, right? I mean, I definitely get I get the question here. Look, they're all right there. Like, Samuel, Watson, Higgins are all right there for me in my rankings as well. But I feel like I'm worried about Watson. I think he'll be covered by Snead tonight. I think he's going to be shadowed by Snead as well. And I know Samuel has been good. For me, it's between Samuel and Higgins here. Lawrence, I think that game, again, if they're 10-point underdogs, I think they're going to be throwing a lot. I think they're going to want to welcome T. Higgins back, get him involved as well. I get the quarterback downgrade, but Curtis Samuel is one of three guys Washington should be throwing as well, and Samuel's been hot lately. To me, it's between Samuel and Higgins. I'm leaning Higgins just because, candidly, I think he's the better player.
Yeah, and the only reason it's tough to say Higgins right now is because he's dealt with the injuries, and and that comes in with the inconsistency. The thing about Curtis Samuel is he'll have opportunities with the Commanders throwing it 40-plus times a game, but at the end of the day, when you do have that 10-point spread, you got the backup quarterback in there, you do expect them to try to throw the ball a little more, so then it just comes down to who do you feel like is the best player, and in that case, it'll be T. Higgins, but they're all ranked around the same spot.
The other thing I'll say just very quickly about this is that, like, the Commanders actually have – I get that Samuel's have been really good the last couple of weeks, but the Commanders have – actually, weirdly, a lot of weapons, right? I mean, they throw to Dotson, they throw to McLaurin, they throw to Samuel, they throw to Logan Thomas, they throw to Robinson and Gibson out of the backfield. You see some Byron Pringle and De'Ami Brown and Jamison Crowder mixed in as well. With the Bengals, it really feels like it's Chase, it's Higgins, it's Boyd. It's kind of a narrow target tree. And the other thing is this is dumb. I'll admit this is dumb. This is not statistically sound. Right? But when it's a toss-up like this, Lawrence, I don't know if you guys do this, Jay, I don't know if you guys do this, but when it's a toss-up like that, when it literally, like, again, I have those at 28, 29, 30 in my ranks. They're all, like, right there. It's a coin flip. I pick the guy going on Monday night. Yeah. Give me a chance. I just want action on Monday night, so it's just like, even if everything goes to crap, hey, maybe Higgins catches 2 touchdowns. I've still got some hope. Yeah. I know it's dumb. It's not statistically sound. It doesn't matter, but when it's a coin flip like that, I do that just because I want a last chance gasp.
Yeah, it'd be like the same as not a Monday night, the last game, but just kind of looking at the game total overall, looking at the implied points for the game, and seeing that the Bengals are 10-point underdogs. Like, you that could end up breaking a tie as well when you had decisions like these.
Yep. Yeah. What's your storyline, Jay?
My storyline is San Francisco, Philadelphia, which I think is potentially the game of the season. And think about this. The Eagles went 14-3 last year, stormed their way through the playoffs to the Super Bowl, barely lost to Patrick Mahomes. Now they're 10-1, and they're 3-point underdogs at home. More or less, I mean, they've got a couple of injuries, but they are pretty close to full strength, just missing Zach Cunningham and Dallas Goedert. Now they're 3-point dogs to San Francisco, who I think, and the betting market thinks, is the best team in football.
I agree.
Just a lot of repercussions in this game. NFC 1 seed opens the door for the NFC East for the Cowboys if the Eagles lose. I think Brock Purdy gets right into the MVP discussion with a win here. I think Jalen Hurts goes back to your clear favorite with a win too. So a lot going on. And I think probably in a good news for the game, the rain, which was forecast, is now no longer forecast. This is going to be a clean surface and should be a fantastic
And
game.
I think you are starting literally every single player there that you would viably start.
Okay.
Once again, here's Michael Thomas. He's, when you think about,
when
Mike
you're not playing,
yeah, you got a lot to do.
You got to start, guys. All right, 0.5 PPR. I need 3. Achane, Swift, Zach Moss, or Javonte Williams.
So he needs 3. So
benching
Moss
one.
in.
yeah, it's to me obviously. Listen, Moss is the no. Here's the no-brainers. I think Moss and Swift are. So it really comes down to Javonte Williams and Devon Achane. I have Williams at 20. I have Achane at 21. So here's what I would say, Michael. Depends on whether you need upside. I think Williams has the safest floor. I think Achane has the highest upside. We just don't know. We haven't seen Achane back yet, and I think there's a chance the Dolphins just absolutely boat race.
I'm banking
Washington.
on Achane breaking that long touchdown. So I would because you have Zach Moss and DeAndre Swift, you got 2 guys there.
Volume-based guys.
That's probably going to get you a goal line touchdown. Those are those 2 guys. So that you got those guys already. Javonte Williams, same kind of guy. You can see him getting that. So why not just take the guy who could just break the long going for you when you already got the safe floor guys in there? I would go Devon Achane.
Yeah, I don't
agree
mind
there. And Achane can do in 9 carries what Javonte can do in 16. All right, let's get to burning questions. The beautiful animation that we've got every Sunday. You got to read the text that pops up too. Why you dressed like Cowboys?
Why are you dressed like Cowboys?
Australia
No one
and
knows.
England.
Yeah.
What happened to that huge death?
Those are all burning questions. Is Australia and England? Who knows?
Yes, I believe it is. All right, we're going to start off here with Indianapolis at Tennessee, and here's Shane Stark.
When JT wasn't with us early in the season, Zach carried the load, and that's what we expect, going forward with him until we get JT back. Very nimble. When he's going through, he's very patient. He sees it, he presses the holes, and then when he does get out in space, he's able to break tackles and create those explosives, which is awesome to see. And he's been awesome for us all year, and obviously excited for him, these next, however long.
I agree with Shane Steichen. That's one of the things I really like about Zach Moss is that he presses the holes. Look, I have him. You see it right there on your screen. He's my running back 6 today. Actually, running back 5 because we've taken out the Thursday night players as well. He came into the week at running back 6, but moves up to running back 5 as well. He's had 4 games this year with a 70% snap share, right? And when Taylor was out, he had an 84% snap share. But in those 4 games where he played at least 70% of the snaps, he averaged 21.4 fantasy points per game. In those games, he's averaging over 24 touches. Tennessee has allowed a rushing touchdown in 4 of their past 5 games. If you're telling me the Titans give up a rushing touchdown today, it's most likely Zach Moss. You never know. Maybe Gardner Minshew gets in there, but more likely than not, it's Zach Moss. As you see it there, I'm as a top 5 play. I'm starting him in a guillotine league, which is always dicey. I'm in on Zach Moss today. And by the way, reports have come out this morning that maybe instead of a 2 to 3 week window, it might be a 3 to 5 week window for Jonathan Taylor to miss. Zach Moss might be a league winner or somebody that you cry in your milk about because you had him and then you dropped him because you're like, what do I need Jonathan Taylor's backup for?
Where does that saying come from?
Yeah, I'm
Crying your milk?
Yeah.
I don't know. I actually don't. I don't know the answer to it. I know that it is a saying.
Well, you definitely be
Do you
crying.
not have milk in Australia?
We have milk. We have lots of milk, actually. It's
Do you
a
guys
big
not
milk
cry in
country.
Australia because this is so beautiful out there?
Exactly. Yeah, we're blessed with great weather in Australia, so there's no need for tears,
Right.
basically. Lawrence, what do you think? Zach Moss
Beautiful
straight back to
kangaroos
RB1.
popping by.
Yeah, Matthew has him there at RB5. When you look at weeks 1 through 6 this season, those are including the first few weeks Jonathan Taylor came back. Weeks 1 through 6, Zach Moss was the running back 6 in that. Mind you, this is total points. He didn't even play week 1, so he really was a top 5 fantasy running back for that first quarter and quarter and a little more than a quarter of the season. He averaged 22 touches a game. in that span. And then we talked about it earlier this week, having Trey Sermon as the backup, but that's merely going to be to spell him like any other workhorse. It's like when Christian McCaffrey gets all his touches, you'll see Elijah Mitchell come in there. That's what Trey Sermon will be to Zach Moss. So in the last time Zach Moss went up against these Titans, he ran for over 155 yards on the ground.
By the way, Trey Sermon's not good. Just so you know.
Well, he definitely can't press the hole like Zach Moss do. So
no one can press the hole like Zach Moss.
And also, I think a key thing there is Ryan Kelly, all-pro center, is back for Indianapolis. So their offensive line has been great this season. All right, question from YouTube. David Sutton, standard league, Moss, Eckler, Warren, and Achane. Which three should I start, Matthew?
I'm actually benching Achane there. I mean, in terms of my ranks, I get it with Eckler. Like, he's been tough, but I do think he has a nice game against New England as well. We just talked up Zach Moss, so then it becomes between Jalen Warren and Devon Achane. Again, Achane is the high upside guy, but Jalen Warren against Arizona, like any running back against Arizona, I don't know. I would, because there's a chance they ease Achane back in. He gets 5, 6, if he doesn't break a long one, which he could, obviously. He has that ability, but the Commanders have been worse against the pass than they have against the run. Again, they've been bad in every aspect of it. And Achane, it doesn't matter. All he needs is a hole and, one carry, and he can make your day. But I don't think you can screw this up. I have all 4 inside my top 21, but Achane is who I would bench of those 3.
Yep.
Of those 4.
You know who else can break a run, though, is Jalen Warren. And
Sure.
Jalen Warren, I think it's very key that the fact that he had a really bad fumble early on in the game, deep in opposition territory last week, and they still went back to him. He still got basically 50% of the workload with my man, Najee Harris. All right, let's go to Miami, Washington. Lawrence, how are you handling the Dolphins' backfield?
Well, you gotta handle them as how they were when they were both healthy, which was basically a 50-50 timeshare. And if you're starting either one of these guys, they're basically both flex plays right now. I see Matthew has Raheem Mostert at 15, and you got Achane at 21, which is correct because, like you said, they could be easing Achane back in. He's certainly not going to start the game. I would even bet on Mostert getting more touches this game. He was getting more touches even when Achane was healthy. So just kind of, I would view it as like 2 flex plays, but Mostert having like the slight advantage in touches.
That's the thing, is that even when Achane was running hot and healthy and active, he was getting like 9 touches, 12 touches a game. Like, it's just he was taking, balls like 70 yards to the house. And so it didn't matter that the touches were low. He didn't need a lot of touches because he was just so explosive. And that could certainly happen as well. It is a good matchup. Again, my Commanders are brutal here, right? They've allowed at least 90 rushing yards to running backs in 3 of the past 4 games. They've allowed the 3rd most running backs in fantasy since 3rd most fantasy points to running backs since week 9 as well. Every game that Achane has gotten at least 10 touches, he scored at least 21 fantasy points. He's my running back 21. But to your point about Mostert here, in games that Achane saw 10 touches, Raheem Mostert averaged 18.2 fantasy points per game. He's had at least 80 rushing yards in 3 straight, at least 20 touches in back-to-back games. Last time we saw him was against a tough Jets defense on Black Friday, and he got into the end zone twice. And so now he's had extra rest in a game in which the Dolphins are favored. The line has come down, Jay, which I'm shocked by. It's down to 8.5.
They'll play them closer than what people think, much like the Raiders did a couple weeks back. I think they will. It's like the Dolphins. The Dolphins are a middling defense right now, but who make timely and opportunistic plays. So.
I can see a backdoor cover. All right.
That's
fair.
Something like that. So it's the points is gonna fly in that. It's like we know San Francisco, Philly, the fantasy points gonna fly. This is another game where I could see that happening as well.
Yeah, the Dolphins, I mean, they really put away the Raiders a couple of weeks ago, so but I do think that they're just going to be too explosive for Washington. All right, question from Bob Stone.
Matthew, a lot of pressure.
Everyone says you can't sit Achane, but the rankings don't reflect it. Do I sit Pacheco or Stevenson for him? Had Geno, and wide receivers are AJ, Amon-Ra, and Allen. Must win today. I'd say if you had Geno, you're in a pretty good spot, and you can probably play defense a bit.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, exactly. Like, if you want to, I mean, again, the thing with Achane, the reason the rankings don't reflect it is because we don't know. This is a guy who the last time we saw played like 1 snap and then left due to injury. He's been injured throughout this, He was injured in the preseason. He's been injured in this year. He's left a game early. Like, it just, you feel bad. But if there is a guy that you want to bench, if you're like, I want to get Achane in, I want to swing for the fences, then I would bench Stevenson for him. But yeah, like if you're asked, especially given what Jay says, again, I get it. You must win today. But if you had Geno and you're up high, and so you have A.J. Brown, Amon Ra, and Keenan Allen, I think you have 3 very high floor wide receivers. You have a big, without knowing your opponent, you have a big win. Obviously, you're likely going in with a big lead with Geno Smith. And so Pacheco and Stevenson are both guys that should touch the ball between 15 and 20 times today in decent matchups. I don't love Stevenson against the Chargers, and who knows what we get out of Bailey Zappi. You're going to see some Malik Cunningham today as well, which could take some touches away from Stevenson. So for me, if you wanted to flip Achane in, that would be one. But I think Pacheco on the road at Green Bay has a big game tonight.
Yep.
Packers struggle against the run.
I think that's something too where like you just want 12 or 13 points from you guys because you're in such a good position with Geno. And there is a chance that Achane is just like 41 yards and no touchdowns and a reception. That's very in play. All right, let's get to Cleveland against the Rams. Take a look at your top-ranked players in what is a bizarre matchup. Joe Flacco is in the rankings.
Flacco back, baby.
But our question here is, what is the concern level on Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp? Cooper Kupp banged up, and Puka Nacua quietly hasn't topped 70 yards in his past 4 games.
He's had 1 game with more than 5 receptions since week 6. He's had under 50 receiving yards in 3 of the past 4. Cleveland allows the lowest catch rate and the second fewest yards per game to opposing wide receivers. I have Puka at wide receiver 26, just barely inside my top 30. And then I have Cooper Kupp. And if you were like, hey, I'd rather Nacua because he's at least getting more targets than Kupp since they've both been back, I get that as well. I ranked Kupp higher than Puka Nacua just based on the overall volume of work. But Kupp has had single-digit fantasy points in 5 straight, right? Since week 7, Cooper Kupp, my little Cooper Kupp, is wide receiver 77 on a points-per-game basis, right? He had a 16% target share last week, and now they play the Browns. The concern level is high. I have Nacua as a risky wide receiver 3. I would argue Kupp is a risky wide receiver 2. And if it wasn't for the fact that we had 6 teams on a bye this week, they would be much lower in my rankings. Again, Kupp comes in at wide receiver 15 with 6 teams on a bye and a Thursday night game having already played. So Metcalf is out and Lockett is out and CeeDee Lamb is out and Cooks is out, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm just. Yeah, the concern level is high on these two guys.
We'd be less concerned. We would still be concerned, but less concerned if it wasn't up against a top 2 overall defense in Cleveland. And you mentioned wide receiver 77 for Cooper Kupp since week 7. That's a hefty body of work. That's almost a half season's worth. He did leave the 1 game with the ankle injury, but it's not like other games. He had good games. And to that, since week 7, Puka Nacua has been only wide receiver 36, and it's because he had the one 150-yard game in that span. So it's not like either one of these guys is like on a perfect day, both guys is top 15 receivers weekly in fantasy, and they very might well be going forward. But it's just today in this particular matchup where Myles Garrett is playing. Right, so that's why there's concern there for those 2 guys.
Yeah, I talked about this on Friday's show, but I'm in a league with a bunch of my old ESPN buddies, and I'm in a must-win. I'm like second in points, but I'm 4th in the league, and only 4 teams make the playoffs, and so I need to win. I'm playing like the last place team, but the last place team had DK Metcalf on Thursday night, so I'm trailing, and for 1 spot I have Kupp, Nacua, or Hollywood Brown. I'm starting Kupp. I don't feel great about it. I don't like Hollywood Brown on the road to Pittsburgh either. I don't.
Minka Fitzpatrick back.
Yeah, I don't love that matchup. So I'm going with Kupp, and I'm hoping he gets in the end zone. But I don't feel great about that as all. So I get it, and I'm definitely I benched Nacua in that league.
Okay, question from Mikey Omega at _fantasy Mike. I'm down 37 points after Thursday, like a lot of America. I feel crazy asking, but would you start Downs or Jaden Reed over Kupp with a tough matchup in PPR?
I don't think it's crazy. I mean, I really like Josh Downs today. Like, it feels like when we talk, I'm at wide receiver 27. You talk about the Colts in terms of their passing and any kind of sort of pass funnel. Like, it's Pittman and Downs.
Yeah.
Downs and Pittman. Like, it's literally only who Minshew throws to as well. You're certainly not scared about the matchup with Tennessee. And Jaden Reed, same thing. He's been pretty good. They're using him sort of as kind of a Deebo Samuel light. Oh, the way to attack the Chiefs is in the middle of the field. They struggle against the slot. Having said all that, I think I'm still going with Cooper Kupp. I get it. I get the question, but Cooper Kupp is so talented and should demand so much targets. I get that he's been bad. I get the tough matchup. For me though, I'm still going with Cooper Kupp. You know what I mean? Like, the Titans are no pushover here, and and again, Jaden Reed comes into this game a little bit banged up. He's expected to play tonight, but he's been on the injury report this week.
Yeah, I think
I would do Kupp too. I would go Kupp here too, because you're talking Jaden Reed and Josh Downs. I'm personally in a situation where they're saying Chris Olave might play, so now that's making my decision harder between a Cooper Kupp and a Chris Olave. So it just
Olave.
Yeah. So in this particular situation where the talent gap is that big, you would still go Cooper Kupp here.
Yeah, I think as well, we don't think about Kupp this way, but Kupp is very high variance this week, and he has a lot of upside too, because what has ailed him is that he's not healthy. But one of these weeks, he could just be more spry and he could be recovered. And I think as well, Denzel Ward out for Cleveland is a big deal. He's their best quarterback. Myles Garrett, his arm was in a sling and he couldn't get dressed by himself on Sunday last week. I don't think he's going to be 100%, even though he is playing. So I think Kupp is your option, even though I agree. I think Josh Downs in particular goes off today. But speaking of Jaden Reed, let's go to that game. Kansas City at Green Bay on Sunday Night Football. NBC have conjured up a good game out of nowhere here. This didn't look like it was going to be a blockbuster clash a couple weeks ago. Now it kind of does. And Lawrence, the reason why is that Jordan Love has been incredibly hot. Do you think he and the Packers passing game can keep it going in a tough matchup against KC?
Yeah. Shout out to Jordan Love, who here is quarterback 12 in Matthew's rankings. You saw, and I'll get into Jordan Love a little later when we go shot for shot, but you saw early in the Chiefs and Raiders game that even Aiden O'Connell had some early success passing the ball against this top 5 Chiefs defense. Now, they're still a top 5 defense, but any week a team could get had, and you definitely could get had by a team that's been hot, and that's the Packers, and it's because their offense has risen to the occasion. Jordan Love has outdueled Jared Goff and Justin Herbert back-to-back weeks. So, hell yeah, on Sunday Night Football, NBC, yeah, I think Jordan Love is up to the task.
I'll give you, I agree. I'm at QB 12 this week. He's had 20 or more fantasy points now in back-to-back week. He's the 5th best quarterback in fantasy in that time frame. At least 265 passing yards and multiple touchdown passes in 3 straight games. So again, top 12 running back. I think top 12 quarterback. No Aaron Jones again. I don't think they'll be that effective running the ball with A.J. Dillon, who just looks like he's running in molasses or mud. You know what I mean? He looks slow for whatever reason. And so they don't have much else behind him like Patrick Taylor. If they're gonna win this game, and they're underdogs in this one, right, they're going to have to throw with Jordan Love, who's looked a lot better. The fact that Watson's starting to come on as well, that Reed is healthy. I'll tell you this. I'll tell you 2 things real quickly. Like on Football Night in America, I have to do a parlay and I have to do my Barry's Best Bet. As part of the parlay, I took an alt line and I took the Packers plus 7.5. The line right now is Packers plus 6. I think the Packers cover. I actually like the Packers plus 6. I wouldn't be surprised if the Packers win this game. Yep. So I think they're going to be competitive, and I think if they're competitive, a lot of it has to do with Jordan Love. But I took the alt line because it's part of a parlay. It makes it harder. Here's another one. I'll just give you my best bet. Jordan Love over 19.5 completions. Yep. Recently, he's been much more accurate. He's hit that number. He's had at least 20 completions in 6 straight games. And in a game in which I expect him to have to throw, I love that bet. I love over 19.5 completions for Jordan Love tonight.
Yep. 9 out of the last 10 games, too, he's done that.
I mean, I'm just saying. Anyway, start Jordan Love.
Okay, question from RTB613. Pickens, Reed, or Rice for my flex? Which one? Played against Geno. Need the dub to stay in first. So you need upside here.
Pickens is probably the upside play, but I think I'm going to go with Jaden Reed. Pickens, obviously, he's the one big play here, but I like Jaden Reed the most of it. He's the one that I feel the best about getting, in terms of he's the best combination to me of these three guys that has both floor and upside. I have Rashee Rice ranked the highest of these three, in just kind of sort of normal standard fare. I'm worried about Pickens. Again, he only needs one big long one, but I'm also worried that they just run all over Arizona, right? And that they don't have to throw that much. And we've seen a lot of Freiermuth last week as well. To me, Jayden Reed is the combination. It's Reed or Rice for me. And I would argue that Reed has a chance to get into the end zone with a rushing touchdown and with a pass. Again, they're going to be underdogs. So I don't know. I feel like this is a big Isaiah Pacheco game. So my point is that I have Rashee Rice ranked higher, but in terms of because you're down and you need more upside, I sort of feel like Jayden Reed is the one that could have the bigger
62 rushing yards for Jayden Reed the past 2 games.
Yeah, exactly. He gets you points, and with Rashee Rice, I know. With Rashee Rice, it's he could have a nice game, but he also could be Justin Watson, could be Travis Kelce, could be Pacheco for 2 touchdowns. Again, on the road at Lambeau, I think they throw a lot. Alexander is back for the Packers, so the best combination of floor and upside, which is what you need against Geno, I'm going with Jayden Reed.
Yep, agree there. And I think a tiebreak can be that, to your point, Matthew, they're underdogs. They're 6-point dogs. Chiefs obviously 6-point favorites, and the Steelers are 6.5-point favorites. And I think they'll want to run the ball. All right, let's get to shot for shot. Start us off, Matthew. What do you got?
Okay. So let me pick up my Lions shot glass here as well. Jahmyr Gibbs, Dave Montgomery, both top 10 running backs in Week 13 since Monty returned in Week 10. Gibbs is the 4th best running back in fantasy. Montgomery running back 11. The Saints have really struggled against the run. Both guys are top 10 running backs today.
Okay, like it. I'm going to stay in that game, but go to the other side. I'm taking Derek Carr to throw for 300-plus yards, which is plus 475 on DraftKings. This Detroit Lions pass defense has just got nothing, Lawrence. They got no hope. Chris Olave playing. I think they'll be throwing a ton, and Derek Carr 300-plus yards.
I think they'll throw a lot as well. I'm going to go in this Washington-Miami game. Waddle's season-long reception this season is 35 yards, but that was way in Week 1 versus the Chargers, who have the worst pass defense. Now he faces Washington, who has the 3rd worst pass defense. So I'm saying today he'll have his longest reception of the season, and he'll score himself a touchdown there today against these Commanders.
Okay, Matthew.
I like it. My second shot, Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris
I'm in.
are both top 20 running backs in Week 13. Only one team in the NFL allows more fantasy points to opposing running backs than the Arizona Cardinals. They have their former running backs coach is now the offense coordinator in Pittsburgh. I think both guys get featured in a great matchup. We saw Harris look good last week. Warren has looked good all season long. Both Warren and Harris are top 20 plays today against the Arizona Cardinals.
Ooh, I need that.
Matthew, someone came up to me at my daughter's preschool last week, and they said, "Are you the Najee Harris guy?" That's a ridiculous way to be identified.
She give you a jersey with that too?
Yeah, no.
She didn't give you no jersey.
Is that the weirdest place somebody has wanted to talk to you about sports betting or fantasy?
Maybe, yeah, preschool. Particularly because I'm just associated with Najee Harris. That's how someone views my existence on planet Earth. Are you the Najee Harris guy? Ridiculous.
I've had people ask me for fantasy advice at the urinal, at a concert,
I can imagine.
in a receiving line at a funeral. I swear to God.
That ain't a bad place because it's quiet.
Right.
There's nowhere to hide.
I was at a bachelor party, and we were at a place where young women perform contemporary dance without the constraints of clothing.
Who was asking you?
No, some guy. Yeah,
it wasn't none of the dancers.
It wasn't one of the entertainers.
No,
but it's another guy, and I'm like, really, you're worried about your
right,
fantasy team?
right.
Like,
he don't
got
like
other stuff going
motorboating.
on
He
here.
don't like motorboating.
Apparently not.
Okay.
Anyway, I've just been. It's just like I'm always amazed at where people want to ask me fantasy advice.
Yeah.
But all right, what do you got?
Yeah,
all right. Najee Harris guy.
Denver, their run ends today, Lawrence. It ends today, absolutely. Texans, they cover -3. CJ Stroud's the real deal. I don't think my Broncos are a real team. I think the Texans blow them out today. They cover 3.
You don't think our Broncos are a real team? Sad day, Jay. Sad day. Well,
Quarterback mismatch.
Well, I went Jalen Waddle the first time. I'm going to go another Jalen. This is Jalen Hurts, who will score another 4 touchdowns, and the Eagles will win against the San Francisco 49ers, who y'all said are the best team in the league, but that'll change after today. He's had at least 3 touchdowns in 3 of his last 4 games. I saw the way he finished that game against Buffalo. I'm all in on Jalen Hurts, always have been.
Okay. Matthew, what's your last one?
My last one, some of you out there may be like, hey, I need a tight end. I'm desperate for a tight end. Barry, please give me a tight end. And for those people that are asking me that, allow me to say that Brevin Jordan of the Houston Texans is a top 10 streamer in Week 13. Dalton Schultz is out this week, and no team in the NFL has allowed more receiving yards to opposing tight ends than Lawrence's Denver Broncos. Brevin Jordan, who got a lot of looks when Schultz went out last week, is a top 10 tight end streamer today.
Brevin Jordan. Pretty sure he plays with the Clippers. It might be Brevin Knight. All right, tomorrow morning, my last shot. The 2 MVP favorites in the NFL are Dak Prescott and King Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy goes into Philadelphia, beats Jalen Hurts. Who would have thought that 2 months ago? Brock Purdy and Dak Prescott.
So you going against my grain right here.
I am.
That's what
I am.
Okay.
The Eagles can't keep getting away from this. They've been admirable, but it runs out today, particularly with clear skies in Philadelphia. Brock Purdy's your
Full
MVP
hearts.
favorite. Yeah, clear eyes, full hearts. Can't get away with this again, Jalen Hurts. All right, what's your last one, Lawrence?
My last one, we just talked about Jordan Love, and Matthew, you said you like the Green Bay Packers to cover. Well, I like Jordan Love to throw these 3 touchdowns, because that's what you're going to need to beat the Chiefs, which I have the Packers doing. They pull the upset. Jordan Love throws 3 touchdowns tonight on NBC Sunday Night Football, and they upset the Chiefs.
By the way, I just noticed on my sheet I had a couple of Jaden Reed stats that I completely blew off.
Okay.
Can I just read them
Yeah,
real quickly?
go ahead,
Because I
Matt.
think
It's your
just so we
show.
were talking about it. Look, last week had a 27% target share. He scored in 3 straight and 4 of the past 6. Since week 7, he's the 23rd best wide receiver in fantasy football. So that's why Jaden Reed, to Bob, I think it was, that was asking the question. That's why Jaden Reed has the best floor and upside
There you go.
tonight as well. Here comes Kyler Murray.
Oh, boy.
That's his
I don't know
arrival
about it.
fit.
Why does he look like a Teletubby? All right, we're going to break. When we come back, proper shot, inactives, waiver ads, Teletubbies. We'll be back.
Man, he's warm.
All right, we're back looking at inactives. No surprises here. Breece Hall, Keenan Allen, Tank Dell, Chris Olave, Marquise Brown. They are all active. So is Noah Brown returning. Trey McBride, bit of uncertainty there, but he is active. And then Aaron Jones is out, and so are Pop Douglas and Dalton Schultz. All right, let's take a look at some deep running back waiver ads. Samaje Perine against the Texans, Miles Sanders against the Bucks, Zeke, Jeff Wilson, and Dearness Johnson. I don't think we've talked about him much on the show this year. Matthew, who stands out here?
Well, a couple of guys, right? So, I mean, Perine's starting to get some more work. They're using him more like in the passing downs and the two-minute drill as well. Also, it depends on what you need. If you need something today, Zeke, there's always a chance he gets in the end zone. Wilson, he could be part of like a true three-headed committee here. Dearness Johnson's really interesting to me just because Etienne's dealing with the ribs, and it's clear that if anything were to happen to Etienne, Dearness Johnson would be the guy. So if I was looking for somebody down the stretch, Dearness Johnson's who I'd picked up. If I needed someone today, Samaje Perine, as you see there, he's my highest ranked guy. In what is I think, likely a sneaky shootout with the Texans and the Broncos, Perine could get some passing down work as well.
Yep. I think some people still have Tank Bigsby on their bench. Just cut him because Dearness Johnson is the guy.
Correct.
Should have been did
All right.
that.
Deep wide receiver waiver adds Lawrence, Curtis Samuel, Jonathan Mingo plays all the snaps and doesn't really do that much with them, though maybe it's different now.
Yeah.
Greg Dortch, Elijah Moore, Devontae Parker. Who do you like here?
I like Curtis Samuel, but I'll talk about him a little later. Jonathan Mingo here, the 3 straight games with 6+ targets, actually led the Panthers last week in receiving yards, just 60, but now they're going against Tampa Bay. If you're talking about somebody for this week, here, you're going against Tampa Bay's pass defense, which is bottom 5 against wide receivers in fantasy.
And there's some variance there as well with the new head coach. Okay, we're moving on. The only thing I was going to say is on that old screen there, the former screen there, Dortch has 17 targets over the past 2 weeks, the human Dortch, and Devontae Parker. Look, they're going to have to throw. Parker's the #1 wide receiver on the Patriots. I get that's damning with faint praise, but Pop Douglas, Demario Douglas is out today, so I do think there's some cheap volume there with Devontae Parker today.
Yep. RIP to the former screen. Here's the new screen.
Yes.
Quarterbacks and tight ends to stream. Some guys with some favorable matchups. Derek Carr going up against Detroit, can't stop anyone. Kenny Pickett going up against the Cardinals, who can't stop anyone. And then Juwan Johnson, Kate Otten, and Chig Okonkwo as some tight end options. Lawrence, who jumps out here?
Cade Otten here, 4+ catches in 5 of his past 6 games here. And again, going against Carolina, who's a little more stout against the pass than they are versus the run, but still it's a Carolina defense that isn't very good. I like Juwan Johnson here too. He's been getting involved. Season high, 7 targets last week. You already got Rashid Shaheed out. And Michael Thomas is out as well. A.T. Perry, he's still coming along as a young rookie. Juwan Johnson could be depended upon today.
Right. I mean, you heard me mention Brevin Jordan and shot for shot among the tight ends as well. I'll also say again with Shaheed and Thomas out that Juwan Johnson's kind of interesting here. On the quarterbacks, very quietly, Derek Carr in his 5 full games has thrown for at least 300 yards in 4 of them. Kenny Pickett looked better last week. Now he's at home against Arizona, who struggled. All right, here comes BB.
BB at Yankees 047. I have Hawkinson on bye. I have no tight end on the bench due to stashing and buys. Do I drop Keaton Mitchell for a tight end spot this week, already clinched first round bye, or do I run no tight end and save my guys?
Save your guys. That's not even a question.
Yep.
Save your guys.
Keaton Mitchell's too good.
Keaton Mitchell's too good, and you don't need it. You don't need the win. Like, again, like, you know, you've already clinched a first-round bye. Hopefully you get by with a 0 from the tight end position. But the truth of the matter is that, I mean, I don't know what your waiver wire looks like, but, yeah, I think Keaton Mitchell is too good.
Yeah.
And the workload recently is too encouraging, especially coming out of the bye. Like, I would not do it for a 1-week rental.
Also, too, whatever tight end you're going to get, what's the chances he gets more than 5, 6, 7 points? So you're going to either have 0 points or you're going to have 5 to 7 points from that tight end position. Then the next week you're battling trying to get Keaton Mitchell back on the waivers.
What do we got? Okay.
All right, Boyce.
It's by Mageddon from Boyce.
Yep. Gentlemen, in one league I have 7 players out, leaving only one decision. Montgomery or Nakua in my full PPR flex, leaning towards Monty. Do you agree, Matthew?
Yes, not close.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yep.
Yeah.
Even with.
We leaning all the way over on that one.
Yep. No, 100%. I think Detroit are going to score at will in that game. A lot of touchdown equity for Monty. All right, Jacob Yako. Heavyweight matchup between first and second this week. 12-team league with standard scoring. Who should I start in my flex? Rashee Rice, Sam Laporta, or Dearness Johnson? League rewards regular season standings in addition to playoffs, Matthew.
Just to let you know.
Hashtag FF Pregame, hashtag Vegemite, hashtag free Rashee Rice. I like that he snuck Vegemite in between the two more conventional football hashtags. That's a great job by you, Jacob Yako. Also a great name. Matthew, help him out.
I'm going to go with Rashee Rice there. I get it with Laporta as well. I think I'm nervous is a strong word. I could see the Detroit passing offense being limited here because I think they're going to be able to run so well against the Saints. Like, I just don't think they're going to need to throw that much. And so, so then it becomes Rice or Laporta as well. I'll say this. I think Laporta has the better chance at a touchdown, right? But I think Rice has the better chance at a bigger game. To me, it's those two guys here. But I feel like, because he said free Rashee Rice.
That's what he wants you to say.
I feel like he wants me to say Rashee Rice.
Yeah. I will say, Jacob, that I'm stealing this from Judah Fortgang, who does a great job at PFF. But the key thing with Jared Goff is that, so when he faces no pressure, he's magnificent.
Yes.
When he faces pressure, he's terrible. This has been the book on him his entire career, and the Saints do not generate pressure with their pass rush. And Cam Jordan's banged up, see if he's going to play. But I don't think that Jared Goff is going to be under pressure that much, so I think that'll help their passing game. At the same time, to Matthew's point, they may be leading and running the ball.
Cam Jordan is active, by the way.
He's active.
He is officially active, but yes,
he comes into the game.
Limited. He was a game-time decision, so he less than 100%. Yeah. And even with Cam Jordan, they haven't been able to generate pressure. He should have a clean pocket as well. I get how good Laporta is. It's weird for me to sit a wide receiver for a tight end.
Yep.
So to me, like I said, I think Laporta's the floor play. I think Rice is the upside play. Depends on what you need.
Yep, agreed. All right. The very well-dressed Harrison Daniels III.
Yes.
In a three-way tie for the final playoff spot in my league. What is the better flex option? Singletary against Denver or Debo against Philly. Also need to start one QB. Purdy against Philly, Stroud against Denver, or Lawrence against Cincinnati.
I'm going Singletary and Stroud. I'm going Texans.
Yep. I'd say load up on the Texans as well. Lawrence?
Look, Debo.
You're a Broncos guy,
the challenge with Debo is just like I think you're starting him, but we love McCaffrey, we love Kittle. Start your tight ends against Philadelphia. We love Ayuk in the middle of the field there as well. So I think he's the fourth option on that offense. Whereas Singletary got 80% of the snaps. The Broncos don't scare you. Last 4 weeks, only two teams in the NFL allow more rushing yards per game than the Denver Broncos. So I think Singletary is both the floor play and the upside play. If you wanted to diversify, which I get that, then you could go Purdy instead of Stroud. But I think I like Stroud the most of all the quarterbacks. Again, Stroud at the game's in Houston, and Stroud has been awesome at home this entire year. There may not be a hotter quarterback in the NFL than C.J. Stroud right now.
I feel like nobody in the NFL today is going to play harder than Debo Samuel, because he was at the center of all that Philly fans. And if we had a quarterback type stuff between the Eagles and the Niners, I think he's going to do a little something today.
Yep. All right, Kyle Butler, Matthew, I'm struggling with this one. Need to start one 12-team PPR, Tank Dell or Bijan Robinson. Thanks in advance. Who thought that might have been a question before the season?
I did, because I thought Tank Dell was going to be a thing. That's right. But as much as I love Tank Dell, he's my guy. I'm going with Bijan Robinson here. Yeah. There's a chance that Tank Dell sees Surtain. Broncos are pretty good in terms of perimeter wide receiver defense. Bijan Robinson's going to get close to 20 touches. And while the Jets are a good defense, the one way to attack them is against the run. They're a bottom 12 run defense over the last month as well. Bijan's been involved more in the passing game as well. So I get it. As good as Tank Dell has been, I'm going to go with Bijan Robinson.
Okay, one more question before we start throwing footballs. Philip Owen, half PPR, sit one, Olave, Dell, Achane. Achane for me.
I got to sit Achane.
I agree. I mean, again, we just haven't seen it with Achane. We just haven't seen it. I get the matchup, and I know the production, but I mean, we all think Olave has a huge game here, and Tank Dell is, I know I just talked him down against Bijan Robinson, but we haven't seen it with Achane. So to me, it's between Dell and Achane, and I'm going to go with Dell.
Yep. Olave's receiving prop is 70.5. I think he could double that today, honestly. All right, let's do proper shot.
Oh.
Jalen Milroe. You want to kick us off there, Matthew, in the roll tide?
You know what?
If you're going to do Jalen Milroe, you got to do all the antics and stuff. You got to play that backyard football.
It's been an up and down year for Jalen Milroe, but I got to be honest with you. Those last two drives against Georgia, were things of beauty.
Yes.
Were things of beauty.
I'm glad that fumble came back to him at the end because he deserved it with how he played.
100%.
All right, Matthew.
All right. Am I doing this first?
Yeah,
all right. I like to stand up.
Yeah. Get the angle.
That's it.
Come on,
Alabama making it to the playoffs now.
Let's go.
Alabama's making it now.
Jalen Hurts. Like Tua Tagovailoa.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
Jalen Milroe.
Alabama's in.
That sucks.
Roll Tide.
All right. But tough luck, FSU. All right, DeAndre Swift. Scrimmage yards, 74.5. I'm taking the under. He only had one target last week. I think against the Niners' run defense, it's going to be hard work for him on the ground. Lawrence, Joe Flacco. It's very strange to say his name, but Joe Flacco completions over under 18.5.
Look, only one quarterback hasn't hit this against the Rams in their last 7 games. So, and it's not like Joe Flacco is going to take any running away from the offense like a DTR would. I'm going to go over this. Over 18.5 completions for Joe Flacco.
Okay.
Welcome back.
By the way, and you know who Flacco's going to be looking for? I didn't mention this in the deep. Elijah Moore. Remember, Flacco and Elijah Moore had this weird connection in New York. If you need a sneaky wide receiver play today, again, they were on the deep wide receiver waiver ads, but that screen moved very quickly. Kind of like Elijah Moore.
Yeah, he does.
Kind of like Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore, by the way, dirt cheap on DraftKings if you're playing DFS. He's like 3,500.
Okay, another man on DraftKings. Sam Laporta, receiving yards, Matthew, over under 40.5.
I'm going over here. Look, he's had at least 40 receiving yards in 4 of the past 5. Since week 9, the Saints have allowed the 9th most receiving yards to touchdowns. Again, going back to that Laporta versus Rashee Wright question we had, Laporta's the floor guy. I think he gets you over 40 yards. Give me the over on 40.5. It's just whether, if you need upside, then Rice is somebody who could have a long touchdown. Laporta likely won't.
Okay, Devin Singletary, rushing attempts for me, over under 13.5. I'm going slightly over just because Denver's run defense has been no good. Singletary's been better than Pierce, and it's 3-point favorites. I think the Texans will be in a run game script. Lawrence, staying in that game, CJ Stroud, passing yards, over under 269.5.
He's averaged 366 in his last 4 games. And
lot.
for the season, he's averaging 297. So this number is kind of low to me, and it's probably this low because Denver hasn't given up this number since week 6, and now it's Patrick Mahomes. Since then, Denver's allowed 200 passing yards a game. Stroud still have a good game, but I'm going under.
Okay, Matthew, kind of a depressing line here. Garrett Wilson, receptions, over under 5.5.
I'm taking the under. By the way, I also really like Tim Boyle's under passing prop. We talked about that on Friday's Fantasy Football Happy Hour. But for Garrett Wilson, as much as the talent that he has, and I know he's the only guy that Boyle's going to look for, the fact of the matter is that every game in which he doesn't see at least 10 targets, which is a lot, he's had 5 or fewer receptions. In 6 week 9, your Falcons, Lawrence, have allowed the 5th fewest receptions per game, 2 wide receivers. Tim Boyle's kind of a check down machine here. I'm taking the under on 5.5 receptions for Garrett Wilson.
Yep, probably gets the AJ Terrell treatment.
Correct.
All right, Kyler Murray, passing and rushing yards combined. I'm taking over 236.5. The Steelers defense is getting better. Minka Fitzpatrick is back, but they still do give up a lot of explosive plays, and still, it's Kyler Murray. I think this is just numbers too low for someone who has the explosive ability to pile up yards. Lawrence, Rashad White, rushing yards, over under 69.5.
He does most of his work through the receiving game. He's only hit this number on the ground 3 times this season, but he did have a season high 100 rushing yards in week 12, and the Panthers have allowed this in 4. They've allowed this number in 4 straight games. I'm gonna go over for Rashad White here.
Okay, Matthew, appropriately. Sam Howell, passing yards.
Not his name.
Future Hall of Famer Sam Howell, passing yards, over under 262.5.
I'm going over, obviously.
Of course, wow.
5 straight games.
Minus 10,000 catches.
Dude, 5 straight games he's had at least 44 pass attempts.
That's crazy.
He's been over 260 pass yards in 4 of those 5 games. He's had at least 300 passing yards in 3 of the past 4. They're almost double-digit underdogs to Miami in this one. Like, they're going to throw. Yeah, give me the over on 262.5.
Okay, I like it.
Come on.
Keenan Allen, his receiving yards are set at 89.5. This is like Tirico Hill territory, which seems crazy, but then in terms of receiving yards per game, second in the NFL behind Tyreek. It's not CeeDee Lamb, it's not A.J. Brown, it's Keenan Allen. He's had 16, 14 targets the past 3 weeks. I think he keeps it going even with being a bit banged up, and he goes over. Lawrence, Patrick Mahomes, passing and rushing yards combined over under 275.5.
Green Bay's allowed this number once in their last 6 games. So, yes, their offense is playing better. Green Bay's is, but the defense has stepped up a little bit too. Now, Patrick Mahomes couldn't even hit 200 passing yards versus Philly nor Miami. I'm going to go under this for Patrick Mahomes.
Okay, and the last one, Matthew, to close us out. Zach Moss, rushing yards, 78.5.
This one's I think this is a pretty good line, but I am going to go over. Look, in 3 of the 4 games that he was a starter in weeks 2 through 5, he had 79 yards or more. He went over this number against Tennessee the last time he faced them, and in games in which Jonathan Taylor is out, he's played 84% of the snaps at least. We heard Shane Steichen earlier in the show talk about how good Zach Moss is at pressing the holes, Lawrence. It's always something important to be good at.
It is, it really is.
You know, so I believe he presses the holes in a big way today, Jay, and gets over 78.5.
All right, on that note, don't forget on DraftKings
quoting the
Sportsbook
coach.
this season.
They can't
Matthew,
get mad at me for quoting the coach.
New customers can bet $5 and pocket $150 in bonus bets instantly. Plus, all customers can get a no-sweat same-game parlay every day. Download the app and use the promo code BERRY when you sign up. DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. We're off to break. When we come back, rankings. Here he is, Jamal Williams, a.k.a. What's his name again? The leader of the Hidden Village of the Den.
Swag Daddy.
Yeah, Swag Daddy.
Swag Daddy
always
has
has the best vibes.
he always has the best
Yeah,
vibes.
he's our market favorite for
Right.
best vibes.
I bet you he presses the holes well.
Okay, we'll be back after this. Okay, we are back. Let Danger Russ Wilson cook. Comeback season. Russ-a-sance for Russ, signing a little T-shirt jersey, it looks like, for an adoring fan.
Who wore a chef's hat. He's definitely not going to be...
Somehow missed that.
Yeah, he's let Russ cook. He's wearing a chef's hat. He's definitely not going to be bullied at school for that.
Oh boy, yeah, I'm not sure about that. Also, Russell Wilson's not really in the kitchen. They're not really letting him cook this season.
No,
He's just,
they've turned him into a game manager.
Yeah,
That's the thing.
he puts food in the microwave now, but it still gets hot.
By the way, here's the like he's like a sous chef.
Yeah,
like I mean,
good.
like the truth is that
Sous
you don't
boss.
want him cooking.
No.
Like no, I
Get
mean,
him out of the
like
kitchen.
last
On the
year he
couch.
cooked and we saw the results.
Yeah, the house burnt out.
Right,
the kitchen,
exactly.
There was a fire.
You want Russ handing the ball off and then throwing. And by the way, not only is he not cooking, but like he's needed Cortland Sutton to literally make like 5 of the 7 best catches in the NFL this year to come down with touchdowns. I mean, seriously, if Cortland Sutton hadn't made like 4 or 5 like unbelievable like.
The Bills one was insane.
There's a couple of them that were just like, what? How is that possible? So, and without those, anyway, we don't want Russ to cook.
He's had his cooking utensils
He's
confiscated.
been fine, though. He's a game manager.
Yes, and he is
He's like
not.
a young Jay Croucher out there. Hey, question for you. Just like you're sort of managing stuff.
Okay, all right, interesting.
I'm curious. We didn't get to the end of this. When the dad at your kid's preschool said to you, "Hey, are you the Najee Harris guy?"
Yeah.
What was your response?
I looked at him in the eye and I said, "No, how dare you? I'm the Michael Thomas guy, and I've always been the Michael Thomas
tell him.
guy."
Yeah, that's right.
tell him,
I ride
Jay.
with Can't Guard Mike.
Yeah, exactly.
I also ride, Matthew, with Brock Purdy.
Yes, you do.
Who is in your top 10 QBs today. What are you expecting from Brock?
Again, with all of our rankings, we've taken out the Thursday night players. And so, as of the players that are still left to play, I have Brock Purdy as the 5th best quarterback in fantasy this week. Over the last 4 weeks, Eagles allow a league-high 28.3 fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks. They've allowed at least 2 touchdown passes in every single one of those games. 3 of the last 4 quarterbacks to face this Eagles defense have passed for at least 330 passing yards. I also think just slight narrative thing here, but Brock Purdy wants to prove, he knows that the MVP race is there, and I think also just this whole narrative like, they wouldn't have won anyway. You know, like the NFC Championship game, Brock wasn't good, like blah, 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 blah. Brock's like, no. If I'd been healthy, we were winning that game. And so I think they come out there. The market agrees as well. They're -3 favorites. The Niners are on DraftKings. I think the market is right. I think the Niners win this game. Brock Purdy for MVP.
I love it. All right, Lawrence. Russell Wilson.
Make no mistake, Jalen Hurts is still my ride or die.
Okay. Russell Wilson, he is in the top 10. What are you thinking he's going to do?
I think he is cooking. I don't think he cooking like Thanksgiving dinner.
No.
You know what I'm saying? He ain't cooking for the family, but he cooking, and now you get he's got one more touchdown pass than CJ Stroud. But he'll face the Houston Texans defense, who in week 12 allowed Trevor Lawrence to be QB6. Week 11, Kyler was QB6 against the Texans. Week 10, Burrow, QB7, and Baker Mayfield was QB7 against the Texans in week 9. So I like this to be one of his better weeks. He's a consistent guy. Doesn't give you the blow-up games, but he'll give you that 15, 16, 17 fantasy points. That's what he's averaged over the last 3 games. So Matthews got him here at 9, and I think that's about right for this situation.
Yep. Wilson is a really interesting one today because the Texans, they're very solid against the run and terrible against the pass, but the Broncos never want to pass the ball. So this is going to be an interesting reflection, not just on Russell Wilson and his ability, but how much Sean Payton actually believes in Russell Wilson, because they should be throwing to win this game. My guy.
Also, by the way, they just don't have, Sutton's a nice player, but Jerry Jeudy has been, candidly, he has underperformed his entire time. And I'm sitting here wearing an Alabama t-shirt, but Jerry Jeudy has underperformed his entire time in Denver. The things he's most notable for this year is getting into an argument with Steve Smith on the sideline.
Well, now you're gonna be next.
Well, and maybe me. I would love Jerry. I've seen the talent. It just hasn't, for whatever reason, it has not been unlocked in Denver yet. And so I don't know if he feels like he's got the weapons. They haven't unlocked Marvin Mims yet.
It's not like they're top tier we working with here.
Okay.
You would rather have. Tell me if you would rather have Nico Collins, Tank Dell,
Yeah,
Noah
today,
Brown,
yeah.
who's active today, than the Broncos wide
yeah,
receivers.
For sure, definitely.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton look like if C.J. Stroud were throwing to them as well. But I'm going to stick with the Alabama theme. Jalen Hurts. Everyone's talking about this as a massive game for Brock Purdy and his standing in the league, the MVP race, everything. I agree. This is quietly a big game for Jalen Hurts as well because, I mean, he was magnificent down the stretch against Buffalo, but he was dreadful in the first half. He was dreadful in the first half against Kansas City. He hasn't topped 207 passing yards the past 3 weeks. Now, he's still been a fantasy monster because he's given you the rushing and the touchdowns, but I think San Francisco have the best defense in the NFL right now. So let's see what Jalen Hurts can do without Dallas.
A little bit of a referendum on him as well. But fantasy-wise, don't get stupid. You're starting Jalen Hurts.
Yes, absolutely. All right, let's look at quarterbacks.
And you're starting DeAndre Swift and you're starting A.J. Brown. We'll get to those guys, but I'm just saying.
Starting everyone.
You're starting everyone you would normally start.
Okay, let's look at quarterbacks 11 through 20, Matthew, and headlined by Jared Goff, who comes in at number 11.
Look, we talked about this earlier in the show, Jay, in terms of how good Jared Goff is when he has a clean pocket. Saints are bottom 5 in pressure rate this year. Cam Jordan's less than 100%. And you think about this. The Lions have the 3rd highest implied team total this week of 26 points. When Detroit scores at least 24 points, Jared Goff averages over 18 fantasy points per game. We know how good he is at home. This game is in New Orleans, but it's in a dome on the turf. I do think they run well, but I have Goff as QB 11 heading into today.
Okay, and Lawrence, staying in that game, Derek Carr.
Yeah, you guys talked about him a little earlier. You don't love that he's been quarterback 23 on a points per game basis. The last 4 weeks, he's thrown 4 touchdowns the past 4 weeks. That's yucky, but he's going against these Lions today that in the last 3 games, the Lions defense just been giving it up. 8 touchdown passes the last 3 games. They allow the 6th most points per game to quarterbacks in fantasy. So I think today he could put those yards with some touchdowns today against the Detroit Lions.
You were the first person I've met over the age of 6 to use the word yucky. By the way, interesting. I feel like that's one that you hear a lot at home.
Yes, yucky. No, that's a great word. Very underutilized.
My 6-year-old don't even say that word.
But that's just you.
Okay, Jordan Love is the guy who stands out to me in this little segment of quarterbacks. To your point, Matthew, about the 19.5 completions, I think that's too low. 218.5 passing yards is his prop 2. To me, that's like 30 yards too low. I think
agree.
they're going to be throwing a lot. I think he has made real strides. Now, this is the toughest defense that he's played in this stretch.
Agreed.
But I think that's counteracted a bit by the fact that he's going up against Patrick Mahomes and he's probably going to need to be throwing. So I believe in Jordan Love.
And they're not going to be able to run the ball. That's the other thing. Like, again, they don't have a running back. The Chiefs are middle of the pack run defense, but A.J. Dillon has looked bad. I'm sorry. He just has not looked good. They don't have Aaron Jones in this game. And so they're going to have to rely on the non-explosive A.J. Dillon. Like, he's a volume guy, and I just don't think he's going to get the volume in this one. So they are going to have to win this on the legs and arms of arm. He only has one that he uses. He's got 2, I suppose.
He's definitely got 2. The
Yeah,
over-under
arms
is
was correct.
1.5.
Right, the arm and legs of Jordan Love. There we go.
Okay, well, you said
in fairness to me, English is not my first language.
That's true.
What is? What's your first language?
Latin.
Okay.
That's what I thought too.
I didn't know that was going to come out of your mouth. Anyway, you said the Green Bay don't really have a running back. Here are 10 teams that do have running backs as we look at the rankings of RBs 1 through 10. We'll start off, Matthew, with Rachaad White, who comes in at number 10.
The volume has been so good there for Rachaad White, right? Like, he's had at least 15 touches in 10 of 11 games this year. Literally one game. There's only been one game where Rachaad White does not get at least 15 touches. Why is that important? Because running backs that have seen at least 15 touches against Carolina are averaging 21.5 fantasy points per game. 9 of the 10 running backs to see 15 touches against the Panthers have scored at least 1 touchdown. There really isn't any competition. You see a little bit of Chase Edmonds, but honestly, Rachaad White should be due for a big workload in a good matchup against the Carolina Panthers. He comes in for me at running back 10.
Okay. Lawrence, Bijan Robinson had a great game against the Saints last week. What are you expecting from him against the Jets?
Yeah, again, Matthew said it earlier. This is the Jets' defense, but they're weaker versus the run than against the pass. They've allowed a running back to score in 3 out of their last 5 games. The 2 games that they didn't allow a score, the running back went for at least 115 yards. We think Bijan could do that here. The Jets allow the 8th most fantasy points per game to running backs, and he's turning up at the right time. He's a top 3 running back in fantasy the past 3 weeks. So just keep that in mind.
Okay, and my guy here is Kyron Williams, who, like, you're starting Kyron Williams no matter what. He's an elite option. He gets all the volume, but he's basically had 3 big games in terms of rushing yards and efficiency this year. 2 of them against the Cardinals, 1 against Indianapolis, who are not very good against the run. So let's see what he does against the Cleveland Browns. I suspect this is going to be a game where he's still going to be a top 10 running back, but it's probably going to be through volume.
Yeah.
All right.
It's worth noting that over the last 4 weeks, the Browns, for as good as they are defensively, they're 19th against the run.
Yep,
like,
they have
teams have been
drops.
able to move the ball on the ground against Cleveland.
Yep. All right, question from Nick Arena. Love the show, guys. Thanks, Nick.
Appreciate you.
Need some advice on my RB2 spot and my flex PPR scoring. Who you like? Jalen Warren, Tank Dell, Breece Hall, or Devon Achane?
All right, so let's deal with the RB2 spot. So we'll take Tank out of it. So then it becomes Jalen Warren, Breece Hall, and Devon Achane. I get the question here. I still got to go with Breece Hall. Tim Boyle's like a check-down machine. Again, it's PPR scoring as well. So I think he's the most talented of the 3. I mean, we love Achane, we love Jalen Warren, but so it's close for me right there. But I'm going to go with Breece Hall for your running back spot. Just to let you know real quickly, I have Breece Hall at running back 9. I have Warren at 17 and Achane at 21. So it's Breece Hall pretty clearly for me. And then you're talking about for flex, Achane, Tank, or Jalen Warren. If you need to swing for the fences, then Achane obviously has crazy upside as does Tank. But I kind of like Jalen Warren here. That would be the guy for me. I just think the matchup with Arizona is too good. He's too talented. He just continues to get work. I'm going to go with Jalen Warren and Breece Hall for me.
Yep, that's my
Any
two.
disagreements?
I'll go because of like you said, it's against Arizona. If Jalen Warren gets in between that 12 to 15 touches, he's scoring today against the Cardinals.
Yep, agree there. All right, let's jump to running backs 11 through 20. Let's stay with those guys in Pittsburgh, Matthew. A tag team is a technical term we've used on the show a couple of times.
Yes.
Jalen Warren
Not
and
just a
Najee
technical
Harris.
term. Not just a technical term. But yeah, speaking about Jalen Warren and Najee Harris, I have both guys as top 20 plays. You heard that. That was my shot for shot. Last 4 weeks, no team in the NFL gives up more rushing yards per game to running backs than the Arizona Cardinals. They've given up 142 on the ground. In fact, teams facing the Cardinals over that stretch are averaging 31 running back rushes per game. No team has allowed more receiving touchdowns to running backs this season as well, which bodes well for Jalen Warren. They also give it the second most rushing touchdowns. They want to take pressure off of Kenny Pickett. This game is at home. Arizona's a West Coast team traveling east for a 1 o'clock game in Pittsburgh, which is a really tough place to play. I think Warren and Najee Harris are both top 20 plays today. Like both of them, I think there's a very good chance both of them get into the end zone as well. Speaking of bets, by the way, I like the overs on both these guys. I think Najee Harris's rushing prop in terms of attempts is 13.5, which seems insane to me.
Yep.
Like, give me the over on 13.5 Najee Harris rushing attempts, like on DraftKings. Like, to me, that's like an easy bet.
I think the Cardinals-Rams game was pretty instructive on that front, where the Rams could just do whatever they wanted against the Cardinals and were running it all over them. Raheem Mostert is the guy who leaps out here for me, number 15 in your ranks, Matthew. A little bit worried about our friend Raheem the Dream. Raheem must start just because the Dolphins haven't been as effective running the ball lately. I think they've missed. I think Mostert, in a strange way, has missed Achane being there just because taking the pressure off of him. And also just the offensive line hasn't been as imposing. And I just worry that with Achane back, Jeff Wilson looked really good against the Jets too. I think Mostert's usage, they might be putting him in cotton wool a bit to have him right for the playoffs. So I think he might be getting a little bit more touchdown dependent than you'd expect.
Which is crazy because he leads the league in rushing touchdowns right now.
It's crazy. So he's dependent on them, but he's probably going to get them. Jason Gold.
Why don't you take this one? Because I know you have a strong feeling about one of the players here.
Yeah, so start one flex, half PPR, Mostert or Olave. Now, half PPR hurts a little bit, but I still think it's Olave. Here's the thing is that most of the time when you're an injury risk and then you come into the game, you might be somewhat limited. I think with what Olave was dealing with, I'd expect that he's just going to be full go for this game.
Right.
And there's no one else. Rashid Shaheed is out. My man Michael Thomas is out. I think they're going to need to be throwing because I think, to your point about Goff, Matthew, I think Detroit are going to be scoring at will in this game. So I think that Derek Carr's going to need to throw, and the only guy there is Chris Olave. And also, the Lions really struggle against deep passes.
Yep.
Chris Olave gets deep. And he also gets short and he gets intermediate. So I think Olave is the guy here for you, Jason. I think he's going to have a massive day.
By the way, they're a bottom 12 pass defense. The Lions are over the last 4 weeks. So
yep, they are struggling.
I would agree with that, by the way. I do think it's the half PPR makes it closer, so I would get the Mostert thing. But I think Olave probably just in terms of pure volume, because again, here's what I would say. Like, you're always just trying to, like, what's most likely to happen? What's most likely to happen is that Olave gets a ton of volume. But and we like Mostert, and we think he gets more work than Achane, but there's a chance that Achane just takes that over. There's very little chance that, like, suddenly A.T. Perry takes over the receiving work in New Orleans. Yeah.
A.T. Perry is
We
now
like
going
A.T.
for
Perry.
190 today.
A.T. Perry sounds like a lawyer on Suits more than a viable receiving option for the New Orleans Saints. So Raheem Mostert's in a bit of a timeshare at the moment, Lawrence, but Isaiah Pacheco is not.
Yeah, he's not in a timeshare. Although Jarrett McKinnon missed last week, Pacheco was able to get 20 touches, 89 yards, 2 touchdowns. Now he faces a Green Bay defense that's bottom 10 in terms of fantasy points allowed to running backs. Just some of the recent running backs they faced the past couple of weeks. Week 10, Najee and Jaylen Warren combined for 31 carries, 183 yards and 2 touchdowns. Just last week, Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery combined for 26 carries, 154 yards and a touchdown. So now you got Pacheco, they're not going to split touches down the middle with neither, McKinnon nor Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So I like Pacheco in this spot, like Matthew talked about earlier.
Yep, I agree with you there. Yep. Let's get on to running backs 21 through 30. We'll start off with the man whose nickname has given us great joy, and that's Motorboat Devin Singletary, Matthew.
Yeah, I think he's going to motor his way to a top 25 finish. You see him there on your screen at running back 23. It's a nice matchup with Denver, right? No team in the NFL gives up a higher yards per carry to opposing running backs than the Denver Broncos. They're coughing up 5.8 yards per carry, and it's gotten up to 6.4 over the last 3. Singletary, who last week was the first game back since he's overtaken this backfield that Dameon Pierce came back. Well, it wasn't a 50-50 timeshare like we thought it might be. It was Singletary, 81% of the snaps, including 12 of 13 on third down. He got all 3 snaps inside the 5-yard line. Devin Singletary is just a better fit for what Bobby Slowick wants to run in terms of that rushing offense in Houston. Singletary's the guy at running back 23 for me today.
Yep. Okay, James Conner, Lawrence, what are you expecting from him? Hold that thought. Let's get a question from Elliot. Flacco over Singletary.
It's amazing. I'm going to tell and this is what Elliot.
I don't know what to do with that.
I'll tell you what you do. You go with Joe effing Flacco is what you do. I can't never not start a quarterback. I get the question, and if it were and we like Singletary, and I just talked up Devin Singletary, but Joe Flacco, I think, is actually going to be okay. The Rams defense doesn't scare you. They're good, but they're not like great or anything like that. I mean, they're basically middle of the pack. They're 17th against the pass over the last 4 weeks. Flacco is somebody who last year in limited time with the Jets actually put up some numbers. Yeah. And so I do actually, and he's got Amari Cooper. He's got David Njoku. He's got his guy Elijah Moore. There's actually some weapons there. And Flacco likes to check down. He's got Hunt and Ford. The defense for the Browns is going to keep them in this game. I'm Joe Flacco, the quarterback. I get it, but
you said always start the quarterback in Superflex. I could give you an example of where I am not.
Okay.
I'm deciding to start, and I'm not going to be talked out of it either. I'm starting Logan Thomas over Tim Boyle today, and my other quarterback is Bryce Young. I started out with Bryce Young and Anthony Richardson, and I'm in the playoffs too, but I'm going Logan Thomas over Tim Boyle, and that's just how it's going to be.
That one I don't mind, just because I think there's a chance. I mean, his passing prop is like 179, and I like the under. I think there's a chance Boyle gets benched at halftime. We've talked about this on Happy Hour, Jay, you and I, and Connor Rogers, and so I don't mind that as well. Not sure about Logan Thomas, but I'm just telling. But yeah, give me. But in this. Generally speaking, I'm always going to choose the quarterback in a super flex league. And in this specific question, Elia, I'm taking Joe Flacco over Devin Singletary.
Yep. I will say, too, with the Rams' defense, it's really just Aaron Donald. And Aaron Donald obviously lines up on the interior. The Browns, their offensive line is really banged up, but it's banged up at tackle. Their guys in the middle.
I'm curious what I haven't looked at it. I haven't looked. This one I don't know, but I'm curious. I'm going to look this up real quick while you ask the next question. I'm curious what Joe Flacco's passing line is in this particular game. I'm looking up on DraftKings.
I'm going to say 209.
That's a good call. Let me see.
What do you think about James Conner?
Yeah, so James Conner,
198.
I do 198.
198 and a half.
I do think there's a reason. Although the running back 24 ranking is definitely fair for James Conner, there's a reason for concern. He's been running back 39 since Kyler Murray has returned from injury. He himself, he's not running the ball bad. He's averaging 4.5 yards per carry. But when they get to that goal line, Kyler Murray is obviously an option when they run the ball. Furthermore, the Steelers' defense this past 3 weeks they've only allowed under 3 yards a carry. That's outside of a 40-yard A.J. Dillon run. This is the past 3 weeks playing guys like Joe Mixon, Kareem Hunt, Jerome Ford, Aaron Jones, whatever, less than 3 yards a carry. So it'll be tough to run the ball for the Cardinals today.
Okay. Jerome Ford is my guy here. And what leaps out to me about Jerome Ford is he's had 12 targets the past 2 weeks, which is really key for his value. Now, those 12 targets have produced 22 receiving yards, which is not great, but I just think the fact
and by a different quarterback that's playing today. Correct.
So maybe there will be something different, but at the same time, DTR, Deshaun, PJ Walker, those guys also just run the ball more than Joe Flacco, who cannot run whatsoever. He's like
Flacco's a check-down machine.
Yes, so I think that that combined with the fact that they're going to want to run the ball anyway, given they're not going to want to put this game on Flacco's arm, presumably, I think Jerome Ford is a sneaky option for most. All right, let's jump to wide receiver rankings. We start off with a guy who seems destined for a big game today, Matthew, and that's Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah, since week 8, the Eagles are allowing 52.3 fantasy points per game to opposing wide receivers. That is the most in the NFL. They give up the most points to opposing wide receivers in the NFL since week 8, the Eagles are. In fact, they've given up 225 yards and multiple touchdowns to wide receivers in 3 of the past 4 games. And only Tirico Hill is better than Brandon Ayuk in terms of yards per route run this season. Where does Ayuk run a lot of his routes? In the middle of the field. That's a place where the Eagles have always struggled. Ayuk is my wide receiver 6, as you saw on the screen there today.
Okay. Michael Pittman, I think, is going to have a massive day today. He's one of the most underrated players. He's kind of like the Deontay Johnson of recent vintage, but maybe even a little bit better, where the Titans, they have one of the most pass funnel defenses in the NFL. It's been going on for a couple of years now. They just cannot stop the pass, even worse without Kevin Byard there anymore. So I think that it's just going to be all Downs and Pittman. To your point earlier, Matthew, those are the only 2 guys, and I think they're both going to have big days.
I agree.
Lawrence, Jalen Waddle.
Yeah, Matthew talked about Ayuk going against the Eagles, who allow the most points to receivers, while the Commanders allow the second most points to receivers. They've allowed 8 straight touchdown passes. They've allowed 8 touchdown passes in the past 4 games. So, and I found this stat interesting too about the Dolphins. I'm just snoozing around, looking around, and 63.5%. Yeah, he ready to go. Oh, yeah, that's a touch. Oh, yeah, and that's exactly how you're going to do it. 63.5% of Tua's passing yards is either Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle. When you look at their numbers, like there's no one else over 200 receiving yards. So, and that's crazy that they're so successful like this. Like, that's what you do in Madden. You just get 2 dudes and throw it deep to them. That's what they're doing. And furthermore, 22% of that is to Jalen Waddle. So I think, and he already had last week, he got back on track going for 114 yards. I think that continues today.
Yep, the Commanders as well. Your Commanders, they play a ton of man coverage, which could be a recipe for disaster against Tyreek.
I'll tell you what's another recipe for disaster. So last week they fired their DB coach. They fired Jack Del Rio as their defensive coordinator, and you're like, well, they deserve to be because they're so bad. I get it. But here's the thing. Ron Rivera is now going to coach the defense, and I literally cannot remember the last time Ron Rivera was actually calling plays as a defensive coordinator or in charge of the defense. He's had Del Rio with him the entire time he's been in Washington. He was a head coach in Carolina before that, where he didn't call the defense. Honestly, with Sean McDermott for a number of those years. And so this could be I don't think Ron Rivera in his first week on the job of calling plays is ready for Mike
That
McDaniel.
man gonna be looking everywhere. I actually picked up St. Juice for the Commanders at cornerback on my IDP league because it's like you want guys who's going to get a lot of opportunities to tackle. These boys is going to get put to work today.
Yep, I like that call. All right, wide receivers 11 through 20. Matthew, start off with Devontae Smith, who was in a bit of trouble around mid-season, had that really difficult game against the Jets, but he's turned his season completely around.
Yeah, and part of it has to do because Dallas Goedert is out. Like, there's been 2 games in which Dallas Goedert's been out. He's averaging over 19 fantasy points per game, 19.8 to be exact. He's got a 33% target share. He's averaging 102 yards from scrimmage as well. And so you think about the teams that face the Niners this year. They're averaging 22.4 wide receiver targets per game. That's 3rd most in the NFL. And so again, Lawrence, you guys are all talking about just sort of narrow target trees. When Goddard has been out, both last year and this year, it's not like there's anyone else that steps up. It is A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. You'll see some DeAndre Swift out of the backfield as well. Recently, he has not been involved in the passing game. Swift hasn't. Devontae Smith comes in at wide receiver 15 for me.
Yep. And Lawrence, Adam Thielen, who is having a remarkable season overall, wide receiver 11 on the season, but coming off a super quiet game.
Yeah, he's fell off the past, few weeks, only averaging 5 receptions and 36 yards over the past 4 games, but still 7.5 targets and still playing 95% of the snaps in that time. Tampa Bay, you get Tampa Bay today, who's allowing the 4th most points to receivers, and they've allowed 100 receiving yards in 2 straight games. So I think Thielen could bounce back, going back to Thomas Brown. Here's the offensive coordinator. That's when Thielen was thriving. So we expect the quote-unquote old man to get back on track.
Okay, question from James Bachman. Amon-Ra St. Brown. As the Tide are in the playoff.
Yeah.
Roll Tide. They made it.
Yeah. Hey, as soon as you made it, I said Alabama's in.
Unreal.
Michigan's the 1. Washington's the 2.
Wow.
Texas is the 3. Bama is the 4.
Wow.
Florida State.
out.
Florida State is going to be so angry.
Oh, boy.
And you about to get back on that Twitter X right now?
I'm not. I'm sure my mentions are getting blown up as well. Roll effing Tide. All right. Let's get back to James Bachman.
James Bachman. 3 spots. By
the way, this is why the college football playoff should have been like 12 teams the entire time. Because it's not like Florida State has a bad team. Florida State does have a good team.
This is an
Now
amazing,
we want the drama. It's 4 teams.
amazing
It
content
be like that
machine.
sometimes.
Amazing content machine. I'm not going to look at my mentions for the next 48 hours.
Oh, boy.
They're going to get you.
Anyway,
James,
roll
3
Tide.
spots. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Michael Pittman, Brandon Ayuk, Adam Thielen, Jalen Waddle, full point PPR. You have to start Amon-Ra.
You're starting Amon-Ra. To me, I'm starting Ayuk, and then it becomes down Pittman or Waddle for me.
Thielen's out.
Yeah, Thielen's out.
Yeah, Thielen's out.
I'll tell you real quickly. Here's where I was. I have Ayuk at 6. I have Pittman at 5. Ayuk at 6. Waddle at 8. Amon-Ra at 3. So I actually believe Waddle is wide receiver 8 for me, and that's who I'm. So it's Amon-Ra, Pittman, and Ayuk for me. Again, it's kind of it's a coin flip. Thielen's the easy one that we're taking out there, but it's for me. I think James, basically, I think you've ranked them correctly.
Yep.
Amon-Ra, my ride or die, Pittman, and Ayuk.
Yep, agree.
The first 3 you mentioned.
Before we push on to the next segment of wide receivers,
I'm still blown away that Bama's in. I thought it was going to be Florida State.
I thought Florida State would make it too.
Yeah.
Cooper Kupp, quickly. I think we forget that his first 2 games this season, when he came back from injury, 118 yards, 148 yards, and then he got hurt. He dealt with Brett Rippon as his quarterback. I think that one of these weeks, he's just going to snap back into health because it doesn't seem like a super serious injury that he's dealing with, more of a niggling one. And so it could be any week. So I still think every single week you're starting Cooper Kupp, he's still Cooper Kupp. All right, wide receivers 21 through 30. Matthew, start off with touchdown machine, Cortland Sutton.
Listen, Cortland Sutton has made unbelievable catches this entire year. We expect this to be a high over-under game. It's 47.5 is what this is. And so, listen, when they get in close, Russell Wilson looks for Cortland Sutton. no team in the NFL, except for one, has given up more passing yards per game over the last 4 weeks than the Houston Texans. They're 31st against the pass over the last 4 weeks. And when they get in close, like to your point, they're not going to want to throw, but they're going to have to throw as well. They're 3.5-point underdogs in this game. So Cortland Sutton, if you're telling me somebody on the Texans somebody on the Broncos catches a touchdown, I think it's got to be Cortland Sutton. So, yeah,
Definitely.
As you see it there on your screen, it comes in at wide receiver 22 for me.
Yep. Also in this range is Rashee Rice, who we've been waiting all season for him to emerge as the guy in Kansas City. Finally happened against the Raiders last week. I think it's really interesting how they use Rashee Rice. I'm not sure he's that refined as a route runner at this point of his career, but they were using him as kind of a gadget player in ways and just getting the ball to him in space. We saw what he could do. So I think that he is clearly the wide receiver option from the Chiefs that you want, and no one else is really viable in that passing game outside of Kelsey and Rice. Lawrence, DeAndre Hopkins had a bit of an inconsistent season. Had that awesome first game with Levis, but it's been a bit of a struggle.
I wish they would get him the ball in space. I think that could help him and help his quarterback Will Levis. If you go back to week 8 and include that first start for Will Levis, Hopkins has been wide receiver 9. But since then, Hopkins has been wide receiver 32. He hasn't had more than 4 receptions in a game since week 6. That's a very long time for a player of his caliber. And the Colts are middle of the pack when it comes to allowing points to receivers in fantasy. So if you have I'm going Terry McLaurin over DeAndre Hopkins. I'm going Marquise Brown over DeAndre Hopkins, but you wouldn't get too crazy like Justin Watson or something like that, but just look out for that.
The expectation, by the way, this is a 4:00 game. The expectation is that Treylon Burks, to your point, will be active, and so maybe that frees up some coverage there on DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah. I still can't believe FSU didn't make it, and the fact that they're 5. Why are they in between Bama and Georgia? It doesn't make any sense
at all. But you know what? They without Jordan Travis, they ain't the top 4.
I know, but they didn't lose.
They are with him. Without him, nah.
I'm with you. If you're basically saying we think the ACC isn't strong enough,
then Georgia has to be the 5.
Then Georgia has to be the 5.
Yeah,
that's the thing that makes sense. I'm with you.
Yeah.
Because you could argue, honestly, I know head-to-head plays into it, but Alabama's one loss, and I'm sitting here in a Roll Tide T-shirt, right? But Alabama's one loss was by 10 at home to Texas, whereas Georgia's one loss was by 3 points on a neutral field to Bama. I would argue that Georgia's loss 100%. Is actually a better loss than Alabama's loss. Yeah. And I'm sitting here
you know what, too, though? Now that we're looking at it, look at the quarterbacks in the playoffs now. That makes we're talking about FSU down at their 2nd and 3rd, and then you got UGA with Carson Beck. Jalen Milroe is must-see TV. Then you got Quinn Ewers, who some like him at the next level as well. Then, of course, Michael Penix and J.J. McCarthy. So I think that play into it a little bit, too.
And again, Alabama would have to beat Michigan. Texas would have to beat Washington. But you're looking at potentially a rematch.
I would love that.
That would be amazing. And
it's going to be much better viewing material. But next time, do more FSU.
I will say that. And by the way, Ohio State had a third-string quarterback and won the national title and looked great. They looked bad against their third-string quarterback. Looked bad against Louisville. They had to have a wildcat play to get the only touchdown. And anyway.
Okay, let's go wide receivers 31 through 40. Matthew, we'll start off with, as you've coined him, kind of Deebo Samuel light in Jaden Reed.
Yeah, look, they're using him in the rushing game as well as the passing game. Lawrence mentioned, I think it was over 60 yards the last 2 weeks for Jaden Reed in terms of the rushing. Yeah. He's had last week, almost a 27% target share since week 7. He's been the 23rd best wide receiver in fantasy. He's had at least 11 fantasy points in 5 of the past 6 games. I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball against Kansas City. A.J. Dillon hasn't been great. That line is pretty good for the Chiefs. So Jaden Reed, think about the Chiefs. They're really good with the perimeter wide receivers. Snead's turned into kind of a lockdown corner this year. And so the middle of the field is, I think, where you try to attack the Kansas City Chiefs. So Jaden Reed, My wide receiver 31, by the way, he's part of my parlay tonight as well. My Sunday Night Football 3-play as well, as I'm taking the over on 3.5 receptions for Jaden Reed.
Okay, Lawrence, what do you got on Jahan Dotson?
Yeah, just quick thing on him. I like Curtis Samuel more, but, Dotson's been wide receiver 57 since Samuel's been back. But now they're playing the Dolphins, and Sam Howell's averaged 46 passes per game in the last 5 games. So I'm just saying the opportunity will be there for Curtis Samuel, Jahan Dotson, Terry McLaurin, Logan Thomas, who I'm starting over Tim Boyle. Everybody's going to have an opportunity. So just, a long shot flex play, I would have him after McLaurin, obviously, and Curtis Samuel.
Okay, just quickly on Jonathan Mingo. He plays all the snaps. He just hasn't had the season that you would hope for. But under new leadership, maybe things change for him. I think he's got some upside. All right, let's take a look at the tight end rankings. Travis Kelce, number 1, as per usual. But number 2, with a very favorable matchup, Matthew, is the great George Kittle.
Honestly, I've been going back and forth. I have Kittle and Kelce in a league where I can only play one tight end, and I go back and forth because I think it's really a toss-up. Start your tight ends against the Eagles. They've allowed a touchdown to a tight end in 3 of the past 4. In fact, 5 of the 6 tight ends who saw at least 6 targets against Philly this year have scored 15 or more fantasy points. I think Kittle is due for a monster game today.
Okay, and for me, Pat Fryermuth, I understand Danny Carter, the anti-hero of fantasy football, happy hour and pregame. I know that he's a little skeptical because Fryermuth hasn't been running a ton of routes, but I just think he was such a monster last week.
Oh, yeah.
He gives them a different element in that middle of the field, so I think he's a locked-in starter going forward. Lawrence, what are you expecting from Evan Ingram?
Start the tight ends against the Bengals, too.
Yes.
They allow the most points against the tight end position. The Bengals are one of only 3 teams to allow 70 receptions to a tight end this season. Evan Ingram himself went 5 catches for 49 yards last week on 8 targets. That's something to think about. That's his best game since week 9. Tight ends have just gone off on the Bengals in recent weeks. Fryermuth, Schultz, Kincaid, Kittle, everybody just went crazy on them.
Okay, question from Callie. Do I bench Mixon for Taysom Hill?
No.
No.
For me. Yep.
No.
All right, we agree.
It's a no
there.
for me.
Negative.
That was very, that was very
Negative.
Simon Cowell. Didn't that sound like a little Simon Cowell? He's like, it's a no for me.
no
And with the accent
Well,
and the
we're
whole
both-
thing.
we're
It's a
both
no for
English,
me, dog.
so, yeah.
Yes,
Well,
yes.
all right,
Well,
let's
England
go.
is in Australia.
It's true. Yeah, they did
was a
make
burning
us.
question.
Tight ends 11 through 20. Touchdown-dependent machine. Jawan Johnson comes in at number 11, Matthew.
Got 7 targets in Week 12. It's a nice match with Detroit. They've allowed 5 touchdowns, 2 tight ends. That's tied for the 6th most in the NFL. You see my guy Brevin Jordan there down at the end as well, kind of like him as a sleeper. But Jawan Johnson in a game in which there's no Rashid Shaheed as well, and Chris Olave comes in at like slightly less than 100%. Yes, you've got some Taysom Hill there as well, but Jawan Johnson, I think, in a nice match with Detroit where the Saints are underdogs, they should be throwing. He needs a touchdown to pay off, but we think he's got a good shot at getting one.
Okay, what are you expecting from Brevin Jordan?
I expect him to actually be hovering around what Matthew said in his shot for shot, around being that tight end, that top tight end spot going against Denver, who allow the most fantasy points to tight end. They've also allowed the most receiving yards to tight ends. And when you're with a quarterback who's been throwing it 38 times a game the past 4 games for 366 yards, you want a part of that offense. He's basically sliding right in there for Dalton Schultz, and we know Dalton Schultz is an every week starter.
Okay, lastly on Chigakonkwo, the good news is that he was 4 for 45 last week. The bad news is that that was his best game of the season.
And he didn't run a ton of routes. I
believe in the talent, but there's
Yes.
just not enough there.
And they added Burks is back there, and Levis has just been inconsistent this year. Yeah.
Yep, agreed. You can do better than Chick. All right, Sunday night. Tonight, Patrick Mahomes plays at Lambeau for the first time when the Chiefs battle the Packers. Sunday, 7 Eastern on NBC and Peacock. We are back after the break. Okay, we are back. Look at Bailey Zappi, the Patriot throwbacks. What an inspiring matchup. Patriots Chargers, Zappi Herbert. Hopefully things can go a little bit differently for the Patriots after the ridiculously bad season they've had. We are going to jump in now, gentlemen, to beer goggles. One of our favourite segments. On a scale of 1 to 5 beers, what would it take for you to start these players? We'll start off with Arizona, Pittsburgh. Kind of a beery game. Yeah. Matthew, James Conner, what do you got?
I want 2 beers. Look, I want to be kind of buzzed. You got 6 teams on a bye. He's got some guaranteed volume. Hashtag revenge game. Conner going back to play his former team in the Steelers.
Right.
So there's a lot of positives there. Here's the negatives, right? Since Cam Hayward returned, Steelers are top 7 in terms of fewest rushing yards and yards per carry allowed to running backs. He hasn't even been getting all the goal line carries. Just 44% of the team's goal line carries in the 3 games since he returned. They're actually using Clayton Tune, in the tush push, and obviously Kyler Murray always a threat to run it in. He hasn't had a game with a snap rate over 70% since week 2. They're not using him in the passing game. He's merely my running back 24. So 2 beers, you're probably starting him as a flex and squinting and hoping he falls into the end zone. But yeah, I'd want to be 2 beers and a shot. Okay. I'd want to be feeling pretty good. I'd want to be feeling like,
loose.
like how Alabama feels right now. Just like, all right, things are working, right? Okay. All right.
Well,
yeah, what the hell?
Things kind of haven't been working for Marquise Brown this season, though he did go 6 for 88 his last time out with 12 targets, but kind of did absolutely nothing the 2 games prior with Kyler Murray. So 2 beers for me. Still think you're starting Marquise Brown. Should get a ton of targets, but a little bit of uncertainty. Lawrence, Deontay Johnson, what do you got?
Yeah, I would say 2 beers here for me too. The numbers might have they've looked a little scary the past few weeks, but we know they've went off of offensive coordinator Matt Canada. Johnson's still averaging over 8 targets per game since his return from injury. The Cardinals have allowed 6 passing TDs in their last 2 games. That could definitely be Deontay Johnson, so just 2 beers for me.
Okay, let's jump to the NFC South blockbuster showdown. Carolina at Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
Matthew, Chris Godwin, underwhelming season so far from him. How many beers?
I want 3 beers. I want 3 beers. I mean, to your point, single-digit fantasy points now in 4 straight games. He's wide receiver 56 on a points per game basis over that stretch. He was a little bit banged up. He's going to play, but he has been on the injury report this week as well. 4 or fewer receptions in 3 of the past 4 games. He's the only wide receiver with 50 or more receptions this year and less than 2 receiving touchdowns this year. So positive regression should happen. He's a Denny Carter poster boy, but I'd want 3 beers. It's been, Baker's not 100%, Godwin's not 100%. I'd want 3 beers.
I believe Denny Carter actually has a life-size Chris Godwin doll.
Sure, why wouldn't
in his office. All right, Adam Thielen. I understand he did nothing last week, but 5 of the 6 games prior to that, he had double-digit targets. So just 1 beer for me with Adam Thielen. Have to see another nothing game before I believe that is real. Lawrence, Chuba Hubbard.
I would actually say 4 beers. It would be less, but the past couple of weeks, Miles Sanders has crept back into the picture when Chuba Hubbard looked like he was running away with it. The past 2 games, Hubbard's got 24 touches, 102 yards, and a touchdown to Miles Sanders' 23 touches and 78 yards. Hubbard's still dominating the snaps at 56%, but that's not enough for me to go up against this still top 7 Tampa Bay run defense.
Okay, let's go closer to home. Let's go to MetLife, Atlanta at the Jets. Matthew, Garrett Wilson. How many beers there?
1 beer and a shot.
Okay.
Maybe one of those big jumbo,
like a strong Belgian beer.
Like a strong Belgian beer. Sometimes you'll see if you go to
11 percenters.
Yeah, if you go to Vegas or some sort of carnival kind of thing, and they have like the big giant beer. Yeah. Like in one of those big, kind of big
carnival
beers.
Beer for Garrett
carnival
Wilson.
beer.
Yeah.
I just 1 beer, but a carnival beer. Here's why. 1 beer, I feel like you got to start them based on volume, based on talent, but also I don't feel great about it. I mean, because again,
Tim Boyle. Wow.
Yeah, I mean,
really
Tim literally
he did get that garbage touchdown.
Legit, Tim Boyle, I think, is the worst quarterback to have played in the NFL. In history. I honestly, no disrespect to Tim Boyle.
Wow.
But it's kind of disrespectful.
Vicious.
Remember when Denny said Zach Wilson was the worst quarterback, And now they got Tim Boyle, so now that just sounds crazy.
Zach Wilson isn't the worst quarterback on his team.
Yeah. As someone who really needs the Falcons to win this game from a betting perspective, I'm so glad it's not Zach Wilson out there. So I'd much rather go up against Tim Boyle or Trevor Siemian than Zach Wilson.
If there's one positive here, it's that with Tim Boyle last week, Garrett Wilson had a 28% target share. He has had at least 17 fantasy points in 2 of the past 3. All you need is kind of like one missed tackle, and like he's off to the races, and it's it's going to be some dink and dunk stuff. So, yeah, one giant carnival beer to start Garrett Wilson, but I am starting him. It's my wide receiver 16. I am as a top 20 play. I'm nervous about it, but again, they don't have much else, and they will have to throw.
Yep. Okay. Drake London. So to start Drake London against Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed on the Jets defense, I want to be FSU level drunk. I want 5 beers.
They're so angry in Tallahassee. I don't play. I feel bad. I do. I know I was trolling.
Now you're guilty.
And I do feel guilty. I feel bad. Like I'm happy for Alabama. Obviously, my kid goes there. That's why I'm an Alabama fan. But yeah, I legitimately feel bad for FSU. It should be a 16 playoff.
Yep.
It should be. I'm looking forward to next year.
All right, Kyle Pitts, what do you got, Lawrence?
I need 4 beers. Only 2 games with 10+ fantasy points this season. This is the lowest over/under of any game this week at 33.5. In only 2 of his last 7 games, Pitts has played at least 60% of the snaps. The only reason this isn't 5 beers is because I'm being a horrible father, and me and my daughter are watching the second half of this game in the stadium in the rain. So there you go.
Good for you, Lawrence. Yeah, go Falcons.
She's actually a Jets fan too. My 6-year-old daughter is a Jets fan, and it's just because she saw me using them on Madden.
Get her a Timmy Boyle jersey.
Tim Boyle jersey.
Don't know what number he wears.
Tim Boyle jersey. I'm going to have to talk about my bootleg shirts. I'm going to have to make that one.
All right.
Oh, boy. All right. Let's close out with Monday Night Football, Cincinnati.
Your seats are outside. You guys, you couldn't pull some strings, get in the suite?
I just want the regular.
Just you and your 6-year-old?
Yeah, no, my wife going too.
Okay.
It's a beautiful fantasy.
We got ponchos.
All right. Cincinnati at Jacksonville. Joe Mixon, Matthew, how many beers?
2 beers. 2 beers, like 2 beers and a shot. Again, similar to James Conner. Like, the volume should be there for Joe Mixon, right? He's going to get a lot of work here. He's really the only guy they have in a game in which you've got 6 teams on a bye. I think you can't deny that volume. I'm at running back 18, so I'm as a top 20 play. Having said that, I'd be lying if I wasn't nervous. Jacksonville's allowed the fewest rushing yards to opposing running backs this season. Mixon made my hate list. It's a pass funnel defense, the Jags are. Teams that face Jacksonville average the 2nd fewest running back rushes per game. They've given only 3 touchdowns to running backs this year. So Mixon 3 beers.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, 2 beers and like a shot.
Okay, 3 beers for me on T. Higgins. I believe in the talent, but kind of a difficult matchup, and also just worried a little bit about the injury. But for the most part, you're starting T. Higgins. Tyler Boyd, you're starting him.
I need 5 beers. I don't want a guy who's averaging 22.5 yards since Jake Brown has been at QB, plus the fact that T. Higgins is coming back. So I would need 5 in that game. That's only got a 39 game total for that.
Okay, let's jump into pickup lines. And Lawrence and I try and pick up Matthew, who's looking particularly appetizing now in his playoff participating role.
Hello.
Oh, that's terrifying.
Hello, boys.
Oh, no.
Hello.
Wow.
Hello. I'm pretty drunk. I'm drunk on,
Mrs.
Alabama love and little Mrs. Doubtfire.
Gotta rank these voices. This, the Luigi voice, and whatever other voice you do. We gotta start ranking.
And we'll leave FSU out. We'll leave FSU out of the top 4 of the voices.
Much like the college football playoff, the Luigi voice is very, very controversial.
Yeah, indeed. That's the Georgia voices. All right, Zach. What's your pickup line, Lawrence?
It is Zach Moss, who you uttered out. Look, Matthew, you already took the over on his 78.5 rushing.
Yes, sir.
What's another 12 yards? What's another 12 yards for a little plus money there?
You love the plus money.
Yeah, plus money, Jackson.
Even if it's at plus 130, 90 yards alternate rushing. So we go from 78, we bump it up to 90. Now Tennessee hasn't allowed a back to go over 90 since week 5. But guess who it was, though? You know who it was. It was Zach Moss. And the other alternate number for this is 80 yards at minus 115. So that just go to show you that there's a real thin line that what's going to be the difference is that like that 20 or 30 yard run there. So there you have it. Alternate rushing yards for Zach Moss, 90 yards at plus 130.
Okay, I like that one. I think he will go off today. Well, firstly, so my kids are watching the show today, Matthew. I just want you to know, Ella, Remy, that's not how people usually talk. That was terrifying, and it'll be okay. You know what'll also be okay?
What's that?
Derrick Henry going over his rushing prop, Matthew. Now, when I sent this to producer Stephen last night, the number was 61.5. It's now 67.5, but I still like the over on Derrick Henry, and here's the reason why. So since week 7, the Indianapolis Colts have had the second worst rushing defense in the NFL. And what happened in week 7? Grover Stewart got suspended for PEDs. He's been out the past 5 games. He is the key to their run defense. Without him, they don't really have anything. This game is basically pick Colts -1. Expect that the Titans, they'll be in a game script where they can run the ball. And I think that Derrick Henry, he'll get a handful of carries. He'll get his usual workload, which is heavy in games that are close, and he will go over his rushing prop.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? So, I mean, you basically have running backs facing each other. Over the last 4 weeks, the Titans are like 17th against the run. The Colts are a bottom 5 run defense over the last month. So, in the games in which you've got both running backs that are going to get a lot of volume going against each other, Derrick Henry has the better matchup and the lower line, at 67.
He's just better.
Right? Yeah.
He's definitely better.
I'm going home with Jay.
I'll tell you
I'm
this
going home
too.
with Jay. You're gonna be smelling like Jet Stadium. You're gonna be all rainy and wet.
yeah,
Jay, you come
Again,
over.
to my daughters, you're not actually going home with me. It's a segment on the show that we do.
Yes. No,
coming
no,
up
don't
next
worry.
week.
Got
Don't
the
worry,
kids
Daddy
at
will
home
be
crying.
home.
Yes.
Just another
Daddy will be home.
quick interesting thing about this most rushing yards in that game. Zach Moss is 190,
man.
Derrick Henry plus 140.
Jay Weston, Barry, lifetime supply popcorn or another night in Buffalo with yours truly?
Both are magical, but I have to go with a lifetime supply of popcorn as well. Because I'll be honest with you. I think with this unlimited supply of popcorn, I think I will be able to entice Jay.
Yes,
into
or
another night.
other people.
Yeah.
Yes, either way. All right,
Extra
we're going
butter.
to break. We're going to break. When we come back, it's last call, bar trivia. Good God, what a segment.
I can't believe your daughters had to watch that.
All right, we are back. Tirico, Cheetah, and his former offensive coordinator, Eric Bieniemy, reunited in Washington.
Yes.
Expect we're going to see a big game from Tyreek today. Good luck, Commanders. I just say, we are looking at a screen that has Nick Saban's face. I don't think my face was that bubbly and happy when any of the births of my children.
He can't hold it in.
By the way, Tyreek Hill and Eric Bieniemy hugging, but you know who's going off today is Jalen Waddle.
Yeah.
Believe me, he knows.
Yeah.
He knows Bama's in.
He knows. All right.
Roll effing Tide.
Bar trivia to close out. Matthew has extended his lead, unfortunately, but time to make up some ground. Lawrence, start with you. Who has more rushing yards? Pertinent, Zach Moss or Derrick Henry?
This is how I go. Got to go with Zach Moss.
All right, Derrick Henry for me.
I'll take King Henry.
All right, who had more total yards, Matthew, Austin Eckler, or Ramondre Stevenson?
This is a closer one than you think because Eckler's been bad, but I'm taking Eckler.
Stevenson for me.
I'll go Stevenson.
Okay, who had more fantasy points, Amon-Ra St. Brown or Alvin Kamara?
Alvin Kamara.
Amon-Ra St. Brown for me.
Ride or die, Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Okay, who had more total yards, Bijan Robinson or Breece Hall? I will say Bijan Robinson.
I will say Bijan Robinson.
Give me Bijan, too.
Okay, who had more receiving yards, Matthew, Deontay Johnson or Marquise Brown?
Deontay Johnson.
Marquise Brown.
Hollywood.
Okay, who had more passing yards, Tua Tagovailoa or Sam Howell, Lawrence?
Damn. Tua.
Tua.
Cheating a little bit, Sam Howell. Who scored more fantasy points, Tank Dell or Nico Collins, Lawrence?
Damn, another damn.
Tough one.
Give me Tank this week.
I'm going to take Tank as well.
He's my guy. Come on. I'm going to go Tank Dell.
Did Mike Evans score a touchdown against the Panthers? I will say no. Matthew?
I will also say no.
I'm going to say, yeah, he always score a touchdown.
Okay. Well, I'm happy with that. Who had more receptions, Cooper Kupp or Puka Nacua?
Cooper. I said Cooper Kupp will have more receptions.
Okay. Well, this is a tough one. Matthew?
Cooper Kupp.
All right. Puka Nacua. Who had more fantasy points, Jalen Hurts or Christian McCaffrey? I'll go first with this one. I'll say Jalen Hurts.
Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, fantasy ride or die, Jalen Hurts. Come on.
Okay. Who had more passing yards, Jay, Patrick Mahomes or Jordan Love? I will say Patrick Mahomes. Lawrence?
Jordan Love.
I think Jordan Love as well.
Okay, we've both made a mistake there, I think. Who had more receiving yards, Jamar Chase or Calvin Ridley, Matthew?
Jamar Chase.
Give me Chase.
Give me Calvin Ridley. Going
All right,
all
play for the
out
goodbye.
or nothing. Yeah, got to take some shots.
You're either in first place at the end of this or you're way behind.
Listen, I'm not playing for second, Matthew.
Yeah, you
Playing
can't
for
do that
first.
here.
Because I am in last currently. And Matthew's got a bit of a lead now, 4 lead over Lawrence. He's 2 ahead.
So listen, if anyone watched Fantasy Football Happy Hour this week, you know that we are all collectively as a group rooting for Gardner Minshew.
Yes.
Because our friend Cris started bench Geno Smith for Gardner Minshew.
So we just need 5 touchdowns from Minshew as opposed to Geno's 4.
There we go as well. I feel bad for you guys at FSU. Listen, prove me wrong.
Genuinely
Go out
guilty.
and beat
In the break, he was
Georgia.
guilty.
Go out and beat Georgia. Anyway, it's closing time. You don't have to go home, but you
said
can't
go
stay
beat
here.
Georgia.
For Lawrence and Jay, I'm Matthew. Roll Tide. God bless. Go get a win. Peace out.